Pretending The Force Awakens is anything more than a glib facsimile of A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, is delusional. Glib facsimile. I own that. Ask anybody.
Did my poverty help my creativity? No.
Orson said, "No story has a happy ending unless you stop telling it before it's over."
What you are doing now is to working for success. Why? But you need to forget the big success. You need to have the pleasure to do it. In your first pictures you are doing, before Drive, you were not thinking too much in success.
No.
After Drive, you are thinking in success.
Yes.
This can change your creativity. You need to be careful.
Nothing about success.
Quickly, I stepped out of the room and handed the projectionist Paramount's Future.
Every list of great films, many of them lead with Citizen Kane and say it's the finest film made. Do you agree?
No, certainly not.
That's
my next one is, though. That's
The first day that I directed a film was the first day I had ever been on a movie set.
And Orson said it's about a miserable prick. This is his swan song. It's about us.
One thing I think that helped me get over being a misfit, a school misfit, and that is that I became interested in photography about the same time, 12 or 13. And I think that if you get involved in any kind of problem solving in depth on almost anything, it's surprisingly similar to problem solving of anything.
I never studied. I never did anything. I hated it so much. I hated it like powerful hate. The only thing that was important is what happened outside of school. And that had huge impact on me. People and relationships, slow dancing parties, big love and dreams, dark, fantastic dreams. Incredible time.
La película debe ser tal como yo la sueño. The picture need to be exactly as I am dreaming the picture. It's a dream. Don't change my dream.
One thing about like film geeks is they have an intense love for film. Incredible love for film, incredible passion. They devote a lot of time, they devote a lot of money, and they devote a lot of their life to the following of film. But they don't really have that much to show for all this devotion, other than a movie poster collection or a still collection, all right? The one thing that they do have to definitely show for is they have their opinion.
I didn't know what a filmmaker was. I didn't know what a producer was or a director or anything. All I knew was I wanted to make film and whatever that entailed.
Nothing is so terrible as a pretentious movie. I mean, a movie that aspires for something really terrific and doesn't pull it off is shit, it's scum. And everyone will walk on it as such. And that's why poor filmmakers, in a way, that's their greatest horror, is to be pretentious. So here you are, on one hand, it's trying to aspire to really do something. On the other hand, you're not allowed to be pretentious. Why don't you say, fuck it. I don't care if I'm pretentious or not pretentious, or if I've done it or I haven't done it. All I know is that I am going to see this movie.
Campbell believed the most heroic of all acts is the courage to discover who you are and what you would like to be, to slay the savage dragon of the ego, and to follow your bliss to the truth of your life. We taped these conversations at George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch in California over the last 2 summers of Campbell's life. Naturally, we began with his favorite subject, the hero with 1,000 faces.
Why the hero with 1,000 faces?
Well, because there is a certain typical hero sequence of actions, which can be detected in stories from all over the world and from many, many periods of history. And I think it's essentially, you might say, the one deed done by many, many different people.
Why are there so many stories of the hero or of heroes in mythology?
Well, because that's what's worth writing about. I mean, even in popular novel writing, you see, the main character is a hero or a heroine. That is to say, someone who has found or achieved or done something beyond the normal range of achievement and experience. A hero properly is someone who has given his life to something bigger than himself or other than himself.
Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.
For Frodo.
So in all of these cultures, whatever the costume the hero might be wearing, what is the deed?
One is the physical deed, the hero who has performed a war act or a physical act of heroism, saving a life, that's a hero act. Giving himself, sacrificing himself to another. And the other kind is the spiritual hero who has learned or found a mode of experiencing the supernormal range of human spiritual life and then come back and communicated it. It's a cycle. It's a going and a return that the hero cycle represents.
The trial never ends. We wanted to see if you had the ability to expand your mind and your horizons. And for one brief moment, you did.
When I realized the paradox.
Exactly. For that one fraction of a second, you were open to options you had never considered. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Q, what is it that you're trying to tell me?
You'll find out. In any case, I'll be watching.
For centuries, we dreamed of gods, spirits, aliens, an intelligence beyond our own. I found them in here, like flowers in a wasteland.
It's great to be able to sit by myself and just be able to do this. It's like a real luxury, actually.
Actually, when I was a little younger, there was another journey I wanted to make. It was a religious one. I wanted to be a priest. However, I soon realized that my real vocation, my real calling, was the movies. I didn't really see a conflict between the church and the movies, the sacred and the profane. Obviously, there are major differences, but I could also see great similarities between a church and a movie house. Both are places for people to come together and share a common experience. And I believe there's a spirituality in films, even if it's not one which can supplant faith. I find that over the years, many films address themselves to the spiritual side of man's nature. From Griffith's film Intolerance, to John Ford's The Grapes of Wrath, to Hitchcock's Vertigo, to Kubrick's 2001, and so many more. It's as if movies answered an ancient quest for the common unconscious. They fulfill a spiritual need that people have to share a common memory.
Ed.
Yes?
Visions are worth fighting for. Why spend your life making someone else's dreams?
Yo, what up? How's it going, everybody? So I made that video. Essentially, I wanted to use it as a stream intro. I wanted to create a video that would encapsulate what I'm going through as a creative person or as a critic or whatever. I hope that I'm coming through with the audio properly. I'm trying to set up a noise gate. I got a whole bunch of new things in the pipeline. I'm real excited. And obviously today is the day of days. Tonight is the night of nights, you know, all of that. So obviously the stream is dedicated to everybody who has served in the military, civil service. Today is a very important day to me. Both sides of my family served in World War II. So this is a real important day. And at the same time, it's also exciting because today is Literature Devil He is re-releasing his comic books. I helped him proofread and fix some stuff in the original Miracle Child. I'm really excited. You know, I talk to Literature Devil all the time, and my problem is I can't like do enough to be like excited for what he's doing. Everything that we talk about, I'm excited for him doing. I love all of his ideas. I wish I could throw money at him. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like I'm unironically shilling because he's my friend, and I'm also unironically shilling because I really want to see where his career goes, because he could be, you know, somebody that is much bigger in stature than he is right now, which I think is something that's warranted. You know, when you have a lot of these other people, like, you know, that are messing up when they have so much money given to them and making shitty products, I'm like, I gotta help the underdog over here. So if you haven't read it, Miracle Child is a really interesting comic book. It's a bit front loaded. It's his first try out. If you want something that's a little bit more refined and specific, he created Dead Man's Lullaby, which is in part 1, and it's like Crank if like Rick from Rick and Morty were Tyler Durden from Fight Club. That's how I would sell it to a producer. It's like a super genius version of Chev Chelios is going around, and his enemies are ideologically venomous people and terrible people. So it's pretty awesome. I don't have, you know, I got to do it. So that's the promotion. That's today. You know, we got the beginning of the Normandy campaign today, and that means I'm probably going to rewatch Band of Brothers again and get all sentimental about everything. But today, the topic of today's video is obviously Anthony, I want to say his name probably, I'm pretty sure it's Italian, Gramuglia, Gabagolia, I don't know, apologies. I'm originally from New York, and I can tell he has an East Coast accent. I kind of feel, and I said it a lot last time, like, I don't dislike him, but I do feel like this video is like an anniversary re-release of Gamergate 2015 and a bunch of arguments that we've heard a million times. So this is like a all-star, best of, Super Smash Brothers combination of stuff that I thought we were done with this. You know what I mean? I thought we were past this, but because we're not, let's get going.
When Kong Skull Island first hit theaters, the YouTube channel CinemaSins did a video detailing all the ways the film sinned in their popular Everything Wrong With.
Now, I have a big question. Why is it that people start with CinemaSins? I don't understand this. What is so special about CinemaSins? Why is it? Because they get a lot of views? Is it because they're like, ding, something that doesn't matter and that means something? I don't think any filmmakers are going, ooh, CinemaSins made me change my product to be worse or less creative or something like that. So I feel like anybody criticizing CinemaSins, if you're doing it to take the piss out of it, that's fine. If you're taking it seriously, I feel like you're missing the point. They're not reviewers, they're assholes. And who cares?
This would have been an unremarkable video for them if not for the director of...
Oh, by the way, I figured out how an MPV, because that's how I watch my videos, to speed up the video, so there's that. If we don't get through all of it, if there's more to it, I'll probably do a part 2. I have like 2 hours in front of me right now to do this. So we're going to try and pack it in. We're going to try to be concise, and let's just enjoy the cringe. Let's embrace it.
Kong Skull Island, Jordan Vogt Roberts, taking to Twitter to criticize the video. Tons of movie reviews are criticized by their creators, but Vogt Roberts' perspective gained traction.
Mystery Science Theater built something artful, endearing, and comedic on top of the foundation of other people's work. And is it Vogt Roberts? Really? That's an awkward name. From there, the filmmaker went through a series of so-called sins that the video's creators call out from Kong Skull Island, rebutting each one with clear evidence that prove the sins aren't mistakes at all. In one example, the CinemaSins subtitle identifies a character in a screenshot as Shea Wiggum's Cole. Wow, that's so fun. That's terrible writing. Am I wrong? That reads weird. Anyway, when in reality, as Vogt Roberts notes, what's up with all these names and this writing style? I feel like I have dyslexia all of a sudden. Listen to this. The CinemaSins subtitle identifies a character in a screenshot as Shea Wiggum's Cole, when in reality as Vogt Roberts notes. That's not English. That's not Shea Wiggum's character. Try actually watching the movie. In another example, the CinemaSins video asks, was there an eye missing in the video? If a landmass has this much of a reputation, why is it just now being discovered? Vogt Roberts' reply was simple, because it's inaccessible by boat, and thus only discovered when we launched satellites in the 70s with cameras looking down at Earth. Okay, this is so... Why I put this in the video? Why even bother with this? To like point out that Kong Skull Island was called out by CinemaSins and CinemaSins was wrong. So criticism like CinemaSins can also be factually wrong, I guess.
Because, well, he was right. The big criticism? That the review from CinemaSins flat out lied about his movie.
It looks like this movie spent half its budget on rain machines and made sure key scenes took place with them involved, so we couldn't hear the dialogue. Cole's not excited.
Okay. But you have to... I guess this video is made for people that pause so that you can look at what he just said. That's kind of frustrating that I have to do that, though. That you can't... Why is that your editing style?
It looks like this movie spent half its budget on rain machines.
It's because you're looking at the timeline and you look at it paused. You think that time is moving while it's paused.
And made sure key scenes took place with it.
So like seeing this for 2 seconds makes sense to somebody who's looking at the timeline and pausing, I guess. Literally not another scene in the film has rain in it after this. Literally 2 scenes of the whole film. The writing lacks A&H integrity. Oh, fuck. Who cares? Why is this director getting triggered by CinemaSins? Just ignore it.
Involved, so we couldn't hear the dialogue. Cole's not excited about the bombs going off. He's just happy that the director chose him for the obligatory destruction reflecting off sunglasses shot. Just out of curiosity, if a landmass has this much of a reputation, why is it just now being discovered?
As the director summarized...
Imagine going to bat for a movie like Kong Skull Island. Like, I didn't even watch this movie because it's fucking Kong Skull Island. It's like a B-movie from 1973 or something made by Canon Films or something. Like, why? Why do I care?
Critics like CinemaSins...
I care about the factual details of this fucking King Kong movie.
Want to appear smarter than the media they criticize.
CinemaSins isn't playing a character.
Also, this is like the idea that you want to be smarter than the media. It's like you have to understand, making films, if you're smarter than the audience, then they won't be able to follow along with what you're saying. You have to be able to... What did Jay-Z say that I think is so funny? He says he dumbed down his product and doubled down on his profits or something like that. I'm not suggesting you make stupid media, but if you make something too obscure, if you make it too smart, quote unquote, which I hate to use that word, smart in the pretentious senses, I'm doing quote hands right now, you can't see me. If you're doing that, then it's like the artist, the cuisine sandwich artist at Subway is not there to wow you with like esoteric tastes. It's to make it so that if you're doing something that a normal person wouldn't find good, they take a bite and they go, wow, that's actually really good. That's the challenge. The challenge of being this erudite intellectual artist is being able to convey that feeling or emotion or the intellectual aspects or whatever it is that you're trying to put that in the movie to make that entertaining to the audience so that they can sublimate it without them having to go, I don't eat quail. What is that? Is that pheasant? I've never had that. I'm scared of it. If you want somebody to get into a niche thing, you have to present it as something that they can get into. It has to be available to them. That's the challenge of mass media creators. That's why most people just fall back on, you know, making basic shit. And again, we're not talking about intellectual movie. We're talking about Kong Skull Island.
You're just nitpicking movies as themselves. Jeremy even acknowledged this in his Reddit AMA, saying, I've always been a hyper-observant, nitpicking jerk. Everything wrong with is just a manifestation of that.
Yeah, so what's wrong with that? Why don't you just let them do their thing? I mean, you can criticize them. Mahler used to do this all the time, which is funny because he's like, bad media criticism would probably be Mahler, and he seethes about EFAP. But it's like, that is what it is. It becomes this chain of things that's just the same thing over and over again. The reviewers reviewing the reviewers who are criticizing the critics. It's like, okay, draw a line in the sand and where you want to stand and then have a principle about it. But this is like when somebody discovers that they hate something for the first time and they're frustrated with it. That's what this video is like. It's like, I hate these guys. And then he finds out that there are people that have already done this and gone through it. And then he looks up Anita Sarkeesian and goes, wow, look, all these people are getting harassed by the internet. That's bad. You know? And you go, yeah, that is bad. But what are we going to do about that? Become hyper tyrannical, controlling people? I guess so. And then that happens. You know, it's like a pipeline of just shitting on the audience over time for not being the way that you want them to be. If you want the audience to be the way that you want them to be, make some really good art that forces them to, that emotionally overwhelms them, that makes them wow you. They're just so impressed by what you do. Prove it. The proof is in the pudding, not in the criticism.
So this is not the first time I've discussed bad media criticism on my channel, and it's not going to be the last time either. Bad media criticism is a term that's thrown around a lot.
Dishonest storytelling uses narrative elements in far more
passive and bro, it's the bro over there. And Literature Devil and I talked about this a little bit on his Morning Nonsense, where it's like he brought up Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Coates is like this kind of dishonest, biased narrative guy. So I don't know what his beef is with Literature Devil specifically. He never really explains it. It's like, I think it's the tone that Literature Devil has. It just makes him very how can I think the best way to describe it is like if I did his voice, if I read something like Literature Devil. Here, I'll read Smudboy's comment. Creativity or genre merging still needs to appeal to 90% of the standard genre they paid the ticket for. The other 10% is the thing the creator wants to share, which doesn't necessarily belong. I think because he talks like that frustrates people. But like, I don't think you can argue against what he's saying, because he's very well researched in it. If you did argue against it, I'd be impressed. But I don't think that's what he does here. I think he takes like snipes.
Ways. Taking one's limited perspective and writing it as the entire truth is dishonest.
Bad media criticism isn't simply just disagreeing with someone. It's not saying something you don't agree with. It's when the criticism itself seems to fundamentally misinterpret the piece of media being discussed, even when it's supposedly going through a scene frame by frame by frame.
See, this is the thing. Like, he would agree then. He does the frame by frame thing to try and distance himself from the fact that that's exactly the objective, quote unquote, criticism that Mahler is always talking about. He's like, Mahler's whole thing is like, can we agree on that this is a fact and this is a thing that happened in the story? Therefore, these things happening are bad. And like, if you can agree with that, then we can disagree on what you substantiate as important to the story, or what you think the conclusion of your made up idea about what should happen be. You know what I mean? If you have a level of objectivity to agree that this character acts like this and this character is doing this, from a writer's perspective, you need that to tell a story. You need to be like definitive. This, for example, the evil bad guy kicks a dog. Therefore, it's not illogical that later he would kick a woman. And then to make him really evil, he would kick a pregnant woman in the stomach. You know what I mean? That's a logical extrapolation. You're writing the story and you're like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy. Let me escalate how bad he is. What's he going to do next? And that builds up a level of tension. So that's an objective thing that we can track in terms of what is not objective, which is how you appropriate this aspect of the character. To share a character, to have writing, and I think that this is the modern problem. If we are going to write the same character, let's say James Bond, you and I have to agree on facts of James Bond for it to be consistent. So I think that that's the big issue that I have with most critics, and that's why I'm happy that Anthony at least understands that. He's like, you have to have some level of objectivity. His problem ostensibly is that they're just factually wrong. But this is why I think he goes wrong with this argument in this video. Because I don't think he's right about that aspect. I think he's pointing at the wrong persons. We'll see.
Now, bad media criticism exists everywhere. YouTube is not unique in this regard. Part of the reason I made the jump to YouTube over written media was due to wanting to distance myself from several hot takes in media publishing designed to draw hate clicks. And if
that's interesting, but I sympathize with you, but in actuality, that's not going to happen, because the only thing that's different between the print media people is that they don't have to have a comment section that fires back at them. If we want to have an environment where people are able to agree to disagree, then we need to have a mutual agreement that we're going to behave a certain manner. That means that nobody on one side can take a strike at another person on another side without there being an equilateral aspect to it. If you're going to, like, any video that I put out there, like if somebody wanted to criticize it, review it, or whatever, that's totally their purview. I can't get butthurt about that. If I make an argument that is wrong, even if it's wrong in a niche sense or something like that, or there's a situation where 90% of the time something I'm saying I want it to be true to reality, and then there's a 10%, I can't be butthurt about that. And then at the same time, I don't think that it's fair to point at one side and say your side is engaged in harassment and life ruination. because that's a bad faith presupposition about your opposition. That's not where we're starting. If we start there, there can't be a mutual respect. There has to be a mutual respect first, because we're oppositionally inclined on some sort of weird ideological level that I personally don't understand, because it's obfuscated by rhetoric. But we still have to have this mutual respect if we're going to have what he's talking about, which is like, I'm listening to your opinion in good faith, and I'm going to respond to it in good faith. But if the idea is that any of that is going to be taken as some sort of cynical, critical aspect that is bad faith, that's not really my problem. That's your problem. And also, that's not something I'm going to take responsibility for because you think I'm associated, or this person's associated with an ideological perspective that's similar to another person. You have to be specific. You can't group these people together. It's not a RICO trial, you know?
I'm going to draw criticism. It's going to be because I said something ridiculous. I don't want to be associated with someone else's bad media takes. I want to be associated with my own.
So apparently Anthony Gramuglia was uber triggered by the most 3 devastating sentences he's ever heard. Peter Parker isn't gay. There's 60+ years of comics proving this. Stop ruining characters by playing politics. So,
yeah, why don't you make Miles Morales gay? He's your new character, right? I dare you. Pussy, make Miles Morales gay, you pussy ass motherfucker. You can't do shit. You're not gangster, you won't do that. You gotta make the white boy gay, boy. I dare you. I double dare you.
like a typical precious snowflake, Anthony penned a 1,400-word rant just to call me a homophobe.
And Just Some Guy, by the way, is like ideologically opposed to a lot of the people that you would assume this guy's going to say are like right-wing or grifters or something like that. Just Some Guy, for example, has beef with the almighty Lolly. That's interesting, you know? So we're associating freely now. We're doing free association, like freebasing. We're freebasing association, doing rails of reach, and a lot of cocaine over here. Let's see. I'm reading this, but it's not worth reading out loud. Yeah, I mean, what is it about making gay stuff that is so creative to people? Open and shut case of like you're doing some sort of fan fiction thing. That's all I got to say about that. Regardless of if it's homophobic or not, just making a character change its established origins and getting away from what people like about it is stupid. It's like if you made Archie Andrews from the Archie comics gay. You'd be like, but the whole comic is about this love triangle. What are you talking about? That's the identity of the character, you know? There are certain cycles that exist with these characters that always have to be repeated, and if you leave them, then the character gets destroyed. Even Peter getting married kind of ruins his character. You know what I mean? Because he's always supposed to be the young guy that's Spider-Man. When Spider-Man becomes the teacher who's middle-aged, and he's married, and he's like, and Mary Jane's doing modeling again and has problems. It's fine storytelling. I don't have a problem with it because it's not that it's poorly done. It's done to the same standard as all the other work. But it's like, is that really what the kid reading Spider-Man is aspiring to do? Is to have a teaching job in Queens? Okay, that's Spider-Man. He's like, I don't want to fight because Mary Jane's scared. Like, that's not the dream of the character. And the fantastical adventure aspect of these characters is why, look, it's not for kids, but as you age in your life, you should start to think about how you're changing. So like if I'm going to go back and watch Peter Parker do something, I'm going to go back to when I was a kid, basically, in my mentality. Like I'm a teenager, you know, I got to make it to class. And also, you know, I got to split my time with web swinging. Then I got to help out, you know, I got to go see if Mary Jane is around, you know, like that's the character. So people changing these essential aspects, and it's not just like gay this or that or race or whatever. It's like you have to understand that this character is made for a specific time and place, a season of a character. Nobody wants to watch 60-year-old Spider-Man running around and like, doctor, I've got scoliosis. I need to, you know what I mean? I hope that I took my prostate is enlarged. What am I doing? Like nobody wants that. And it just is what it is. People want to see the character in the setting that it was created. And if they've gotten to a point where it's not interesting anymore, then maybe you, the creative person, shouldn't be involved in it anymore. There's another kid that's like 20-something right now that has a Spider-Man story from when he was a teenager that he really wants to make into a comic. hand the baton over. You don't have to be fucking, you don't have to have this like a Denethor death grip on the throne of controlling the character. But that's what these people are. They're like, we need to align all of these things into our agenda so that they can push exactly what our perspective is. And that's just going to kill the content.
If I screw up on my own terms. However, there's a danger to YouTube, even though it's the independent channel.
The danger of YouTube.
Not being linked to a greater company or organization. Bad media take up a lot of attention. They draw a lot of clicks. They draw a lot of anger. And some channels feed on that rage. They feed on the anger drawn by...
I like how he conflates bad with angry, because that's such a typical thing. It's like bad equals angry, wrong take. And that applies to so many different people. That doesn't give any perspective charitability. It just applies to every potential video that you could make on YouTube.
An audience, and that draws more attention. And the algorithm rewards bad takes and bad faith criticism.
Does it? Does it reward it, or does the algorithm reward what it does, and then people create content for the algorithm, and then that's what I think. I think the structure of YouTube and how YouTube works and how it's a moneyed thing for people, like it's their job, that's what changes how they make content. That's why most people went to live streaming. That's why TikTok has shorts and YouTube. Like it's not rewarding the human logic. Okay, the humans are adapting for the computer. It's not the other way around. Like people are going, oh, if I do a stream every day and I have my Dono chat out and I do this and I do that and like Patreon, you know, like they become scheduled. Like I have to do this, then I have to do it this amount of times. It has to be this long. I put the pre-roll ad here. I got to do that, and then they become like a corporate tool. That's just the way that it is. It's not. That's the reason why BuzzFeed was the way that it was. So cope. It's a cope.
But unlike all of those previous failures...
Also learn to normalize your audio. Holy shit. No, that's saturation. Where is it? There it is.
This one tries to have a woke plot twist. She's not the mother of the savior. She's actually the savior herself. Yeah, I felt nothing at this reveal.
Jesus Christ.
The more outrageous, the better.
And to try to pin the fact that
all
minorities is proof
that it's
social justice.
Oh, look at this man.
It's both intellectually lazy and dishonest.
Now,
I love how every time that people criticize Eric July, it's like, look at this loud black man. And they never address his logical argument. It's like, look at Thomas Sowell. Make that turkey jive, baby. Like, come on. Can you at least make an argument? They just go, oh, it's another man saying things are woke. And then Eric goes on his stream and he goes, when did I say it was woke? And then the person goes, oh, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I did. I specifically don't say woke. Like, Eric July is smarter than people give credit. But everybody just looks at him and goes, oh, look at this emotive black man. Look at the young junkyard dog. Woo, who that? Yeah, like, it's like a fucking act. I hate it. Gets on my nerves, man.
Negative reviews have always done this to an extent. There's a sort of joy some people get feeling like they're better than the movie, that they've beaten the movie, that they've outsmarted it. This isn't...
Oh my God. All those examples that he's just like blowing through and I can't even... Like, I know what he's doing. He's... Oh, wait, this is cool. That's a good...
Justice is both intellectually lazy and dishonest.
Now, negative reviews have...
Okay. 100 worst movies of all time. So the clickbait article that makes you want to read it. Oh, look, we put 100 things on the page. That'll give us a lot of ads.
Always done this to an extent.
Blah, blah, blah,
There's
blah.
a sort of joy some people get feeling like they're better than the
20 biggest plot. I mean, but this is so that this is like you ever read the bottom of a Snapple cap or whatever, and it's like turtles migrated 300 of them at a time to the ocean. They are born, blah, blah. You know, it's like some factoid. You know what I mean? Like digital spoons were originally made out of bones. Like some bullshit. That's what all these articles are. It's like, hey, 15 things that were said by, you know, Brendan Gleeson in a European movie. Like, okay, whatever. Okay. It's what I like to call baseball statistics. Random factoids that you try to manufacture into some sort of thing. It's like tobacco pulp that you take and repurpose and then you make a tobacco roll out of it. It's basically recycled garbage. The stuff that you used to talk about over the water cooler. Hey, did you know that blah, blah, blah? Yeah, I did. And who cares?
that they've beaten
This is just a little factoid. What do you mean? How is this bad? What are you talking about? This is like, here's a little detail about Citizen Kane, and then it sells Citizen Kane. This is native advertising.
The movie that they've outsmarted it.
The Kit the Kit contradict. Everybody used to say this. This is like an AVGN video from 2006. You know what's bullshit? In the Karate Kid, he kicks him when he's not allowed to, and he wins the championship. It's like WCW wrestling rules, I guess. They're made up and they don't matter. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rules.
This isn't new. Some of Roger Ebert's best reviews are the ones where he tears into a film.
I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it.
There's a whole...
And I love how, like, he says he hated it, but he's doing it in that typical... This is why he's the professional. He's doing it in that TV way. He's not like, I fucking hated it. I would choke out Uwe Boll. I would smash his skull in like American history. He's not, like, angry. He's just like, I hated it. Oh, golly gee golly. I just did not enjoy that, boy.
Book of these. But there's a difference between writing an honest review, giving your thoughts, and approaching each and every film with the intention of criticizing it. And more than...
Yes! I'm a critic. I have to go and criticize it. Let me make sure that is exactly what he said, because that's crazy if he just said that it's like awkward that critics criticize stuff.
An audience-insulting moment of it.
There's a whole book of these. But there's a difference between writing an honest review, giving your thoughts, and approaching each and every film with the intention of criticizing it.
The number of movies that Ebert and Siskel must have seen for the explicit purpose of criticizing it must be in the hundreds, if not thousands. Not 1,000 at least. Maybe less than that. I'm not a math-brained person, so it must be like a billion jillion times. But he should have said the desire or something, the explicit purpose to negatively criticize it, to shit on it. That's different. But even then, it's like, so what? That's their thing. That's not your thing.
And more than criticizing it.
By the way, I love it. This is, what's his name? Star Wars Theory or whatever? Star Wars man who's all about Star Wars. I like how he's got the Star Wars pattern behind him. You know, like the circular, the whatever thing, the pill looking things. And then he specifically bought the headphones because they looked like that. This guy just really loves Star Wars. I bet he looks in the mirror and he's like, Star Wars. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm the main character, dog. I'm going to save Star Wars.
Mocking it.
Kind of a forgettable show. Look, acting was great. Cinematography was great. The writing was good. But it was a lot of little things. I mean, when we saw the camera in the previous episode, there were like screws in the wall.
See, like, I love how people are upset about this, but I'm also hyper fixated on details in a different way. And it's Star Wars Theory pointing that out is because he's Star Wars man and knows that screws and like glasses and like specific things that Lucas kept out intentionally for the sake of making it look a certain way, he's just obeying the orthodoxy of what he thought George Lucas intended. And I understand that as well. I get into a lot of conflict with people about Red Bricks and Andor because ultimately Andor is a good show. No matter what, it's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not it's above average. It's like a lot of these shows. It's the frustrating thing is that you have a lot of competent people that are in the production team that have no creative input. So they put a lot of work in, and you can't shit on that craft. However, there is a 100% attention to detail and an 80% attention to detail, and nerds pick up on that 20%. That's the reason why Red Letter Media, Mike Stacklasa has a video where he shows all the little points in Star Trek that you wouldn't notice. It's not serious, but it is interesting. So if you're noticing like, oh, they put a little bit of matte black paper there so that the reflection wouldn't show the lights, like that's interesting. That teaches you about filmmaking, teaches you about mistakes that you could make. So just let it happen. Just listen, and if you don't like it, you can ignore it. It's not like it's not like Star Wars Theory is like trying to hunt down the executives of Star Wars for putting screws in the wall. Like that's insane. But that's the idea that this guy's trying to put. It's like, can you believe these people? They're talking about screws, but what you're really talking about is standards. What you're really talking about is consistency. And it's not too much to ask. It's just some people don't ask.
This isn't like Mystery Science Theater 3000 riffs, all right? You in those you laugh with both, the hosts and the film itself.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
This is the kind of media criticism that approaches each film as a puzzle.
What? No, he's trying to distinguish stuff that he likes that would be similar to what he is trying to criticize. That's a lot of this video.
How is this media bad? And by that same metric, how can I solve the problem of the movie? Rather than take the film in its own terms, you come in knowing your goal, to tear it apart.
But like, here's the thing. This is so frustrating. You make something like a movie. You sell the product. You have done enough by giving them a showing of the movie. By them handing you the money. They watch the movie. They see the movie. The exchange has been completed. Now, after they leave the theater, after they've watched the movie, they can do whatever the fuck they want. They can shit on it. They can say it's trash. They can cut it up. They can throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. But that's the point. You have rendered a service, and now what they leave with is their business. And that's the line that I think is very interesting about this stuff. It's like, you can think whatever you want. As soon as you start talking to other people who are watching the thing that you watched, and you start fucking saying random bullshit that doesn't make any sense, that's when people are going to start talking shit. And if what I'm saying is not true, then this video doesn't make any sense. Because that's what this video is.
Identity politics and the message. They don't want
the message.
Some famous critical reviews have...
Okay, so the Peeping Tom controversy. So there's some movie that Scorsese saved or something like that?
You to reevaluate a film.
Reevaluate a film. The Jews were horrified. I received resentful letters of protest saying things like, how can you make jokes about Hitler? The man murdered 6 million Jews, but the producers doesn't concern the concentration camp or the Holocaust. Can you really separate Hitler from the Holocaust? You have to separate it. For example, Roberto Benigni's comedy, Life is Beautiful, really annoyed me. A crazy film that even attempted to find comedy in a concentration camp. It showed the barracks in which Jews were kept like cattle, and it made jokes about it. The philosophy of the film is people can get over anything. No, they can't. They can't get over a concentration camp. But the film has deeply moved a lot of people. I always ask myself, tell me, Roberto, are you nuts? You didn't lose any relatives in the Holocaust. You're not even Jewish. You really don't understand what it's all about. The Americans were incredibly thrilled to discover from him that it wasn't all that bad in the concentration camps after all. And that's why they immediately pressed an Oscar into his hand. So there are limits to humor. Again, two different people having a conversation about their opinions about another man's work. It's like they're perfectly entitled to their opinion. What's the problem? Or what's the good thing?
Mel Brooks' comments on Life is Beautiful, a film that implies you can laugh at the darkest times, even genocide, forced a lot of people to reevaluate this.
That's my terrible Simpsons Jackie Mason impression, by the way. That's not that's the Rabbi Krostofsky. Remember, that's one of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons, where it's Krusty the Clown, when he was growing up, was going to shul, and he was supposed to be a rabbi like his father, but then he wants to be in comedy, and then Bart and Lisa have to come together to bring father and son. It's a good thing. Prodigal Son, I thought it was good. And that's like my go-to Jewish voice for some reason. But yeah, Mel Brooks I can't do. While I was reading that, I was kind of phasing, like I wasn't really paying attention to it. That's why I kind of dropped it, because it's like people kvetching and going back and forth about like Hitler, Jews, comedy, taking it seriously. I'm so bored of that. I got enough of that when I was growing up. I'd like, to be objective, to be self-aware, to be knowing is to not have this poisoned opinion on things. And there's some touchy subjects that people have where when they give their opinion, it's like they're explaining how they're wounded. And I understand that and I feel bad about it. But when wounded people are trying to be just, it's usually vengeance and not justice, if that makes any sense. So a lot of the time when people are trying to be, it's all fun and games, like if you're going to be saying that people are allowed to make one joke and not another joke, and one joke pisses you off and the other one doesn't, you have to be accepting that they have the right to try and be funny, which is what I'm trying to say here. Is like, if an artist wants to make art, they have to try to make it. And that's what a lot of this comes down to. You have to let people make the art. Then you can criticize it. If it's so, if the making of it is so awful, you want to ban it because it's like a snuff film. I think that that's the proper argument against freedom of speech is when it is in pursuit of some sort of crime that has to do with a victim, whether it's violence or exploitation or child endangerment or whatever. Like, you know, that I'm okay with. That's not speech. That's, you know, that is actual violence. But conflating offensive speech with violence is apex retardation, in my opinion, and malicious, tyrannical control. And that's the problem that we have, is there needs to be a distinguishing line between you are saying something I don't want you to say and I hate you for it, and you have the right to say it even though I hate you for it. So that's something that that's something I see a lot with criticism. It's like, please separate your personal feelings, and you can even say what they are, but please separate them from the content's qualities itself. You know, just because something was made by somebody who hates like your guts or whatever, it doesn't mean it's not good, you know.
Award-winning film. Chinua Achebe's famous criticisms of Heart of Darkness rewrote academic textbooks for decades and led to the creation of Achebe's counterpart to Hearts of Darkness, Things Fall Apart. But one thing both of these criticisms have in common, they address the themes and ideas of the work.
No, what they are is they're like personal. They're emotively personal. That's really what it is. And I think that that's what is really frustrating, is like Anthony wants to be saying that it's all about logic and it's all about reason, and they're belying the underlying themes and emotions. And it's like, no. You need to have a holistic sense. You need all these aspects to be in harmony with each other. And then criticism is going to be disharmony. As soon as somebody's criticizing what you're doing, it's dissonant. It's not in tune with your creativity. You're trying to do something as an artist that's conducive to what you want to do. As soon as another person steps in and tells you what you should be doing, there's conflict. So you can't incorporate criticism like that into your work unless you are in agreement. And at that point, you might as well be self-aware enough to understand that what you're doing is going to be criticized in the first place. Like if you put out a product that you know is flawed, you know you're going to get that criticism. You have to just accept it. You can't defend it. Just accept it.
When referencing specifics, it's in order to bolster the argument that the themes are fundamentally wrong.
What? So now he's taking shots at Life is Beautiful and justifying it with Mel Brooks. That's kind of silly. Wow, that's really tone deaf. That's more tone deaf than what he thinks the movie is.
Patrick Willems made a video a while back on...
Look at this throwback, dude. Do you remember, like, one of the first... I took it down a while ago because there were a couple things I wanted to change about it. And then I was like, fuck it. But we responded to Patrick Willems like 5 years ago. Like, this is ancient history now. I'm so bored of it. We learned nothing. It's shut up about plot holes. Look, and he's got the Hulk hands on because 5 years ago Marvel was awesome and now it sucks. Yeah, how's that going?
Plot holes that garnered a lot of negativity at the time, mainly from people who argued that holes in logic and plot were essential to criticize. You had to focus on them.
Oh, really? You don't think that the plot hole, like, it's not called a fucking character hole for a reason. It's not a fucking theme hole. Do you notice that only it's plot holes matter? Why? And there's even a minor version called a contrivance. It's called a plot hole because the plot is the most essential aspect of the story. No plot, no fucking movie. Even My Dinner with Andre, people want to talk about, oh, this is a plotless movie. No, it's they go get dinner and they talk. That's the plot. If there's a plot hole where they go to have dinner and then suddenly they're in another fucking country and then they come back and it's like a different time of day and no time has passed, the only cope that you could have is, whoa, it's absurdist. It's supposed to be like some sort of French, movie. It's a bunch of dreams. But no, it's not. Most people that make these movies are explicit so that the audience can follow along. That's why plot holes matter. Because if you can't follow the plot, then your movie's dead. God, it's so frustrating.
And to an extent, that makes sense, right? The plot is the story, right?
No one seems to actually know what a plot hole is. And all those plot holes people complain about, they don't actually matter.
All those plot holes that you think are important? Get wrecked, kiddo. I already headshotted you.
By criticizing plot holes, we understand some deeper truth about storytelling. right?
A plot hole is a
No, it's not deeper. It's essential. That was the whole point. Like, if you have a plot hole, you're fucked. Like, you need to fix your script. Just go back and fix your script. It's not too hard. Fix your script. Catch that in the script. Fix your script. No, we're not making the movie until you fix the script. No. Do you understand? It's that simple. Fix your shit. If you can't have a movie without a plot hole, how did you fuck up that hard? And then if you really are thinking about it and you're like, okay, this is a plot hole that doesn't matter, right? Like, this is Back to the Future. Time travel doesn't make any sense. So how does the photograph make any sense? It's like, well, we already have a plot that's nonsense. So it's not a hole in the logic of the plot because the plot doesn't make any sense to begin with. We have to make sense of the senseless. And we do that using the mechanisms of the plot mechanics. So technically it does work. But then you go, how many gigawatts does it take to go back in time? Like, that's the problem that I have with people criticizing this stuff. It's like, you realize that Back to the Future isn't Primer, right? These are two completely different takes on time travel. One is a comedy thing. The other one is a serious endeavor. And if you look at something like Groundhog Day, it's like, that's a plot hole. You can't, the same day can't happen over and over again. It's like, what is the argument that we're going to have? In the writer's room, we can't have this concept because it's magic. That's not Mueller criticism. That's not objective criticism. That's just insanity. So the whole, that's when we go, oh, is it bad faith? Is it good faith? Or are we just having a retarded argument? You know what I mean? Are we just in a place that's completely not conducive to making a movie? And that's where we are with this plot hole shit. It's like, fix your script of logic issues. If I can look at the script, look at the story and go, this doesn't make any sense on paper, then it's a problem and I don't want to spend millions of dollars on it. I don't understand why we can't fix shit while we're doing it. You're just lazy.
point in which a story breaks a previously established rule about its own universe. So here's what are not plot holes.
Oh, God, so fast.
These critics seem to believe that by understanding the technical flow of a plot, that you'll understand all the components of storytelling.
No. If you understand the flow of the plot, the audience will be able to follow along. Do you understand? Writing, especially for movies, God, it's so hearing people that have done this and not had conversations with people that have read their scripts and had that like feedback is so frustrating. Because it's, as a writer, you go, oh my God, I'm a poet. I'm so good. I'm doing this. Look at this. So they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And then somebody reads it and goes, I don't know what this is. What's this? What's the gloobity glopper? I don't know what this thing is. Can you tell me what it is? And then you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. I got to go back and rewrite the script so that it spells everything out for the person reading it. Because they're an executive and they just want to know exactly what this thing is about. They want to know it in 5 minutes. They don't want esoteric writing. Just tell me what it's about. What is this? Is it a laser gun? Does it shoot? Like, that's important. You need these elements to sell your script, much less get it made. Fucking amazing.
I disagree. The way a film makes you feel is more important than the plot as written in a plot summary.
Important to whom? Is that important to the box office? Is that important for the film working? Is that important for the audience? Is that important for the general conception of what you think movies are about? To executing a theme? Important in connection and collaboration with what?
Right? There are more components to a film and its story than just the plot. That is
100%, but that didn't justify what you just said.
The written events as they occur. A lot more happens beyond the plot.
Yes, but you have to have a solid plot to have your themes. God. What is it about these subjective people, or like whatever this is? I don't even know what they are anymore. Like the delusion that I can just get away with not having a good script. That's all that I hear. That's all I hear. I'm not going to make sense of any of it. Fuck it.
My recent video...
Whoa, that's so scary. That made me feel things. Now, I'm not trying to... I don't even know what that was, but it's his fault that I don't know what that was or what point he was trying to make. Just, a woman stepping out from the shadows is a good you know. But again, if you want to have your emotive events, you have to set them up. I mean, this is all just performance art. You have to, people need to stop acting like collaborative performance art doesn't have a timing and structure and formatting and recognizable elements that have to be put together in a certain order for it to work. That's everything. I can't think of it. I'm thinking about, in my mind, I'm imagining people putting musicals together. I'm imagining church ceremonies. I'm imagining Cirque du Soleil and wrestling and how UFC fights are conducted. Like stand-up comedy sets. There needs to be an order. There has to be a setup, a punchline. Like anything that's performative has structure to it. And it's the intuitive ability for you to use the structure to your creative advantage that makes you good. But if you don't know the orthodoxy in any of these things, you're going to get screwed over. And that is the problem that I have with these cultural critic type people. It's like, shut up, put your nose to the book, go intern somewhere, do the work, and then tell me what you think is what other people should do. If you've never done any of this, shut your fucking mouth.
Say, comparing the film Excalibur to the works of Zack Snyder, focused on the way Snyder and Excalibur failed to employ their characters effectively. From a plot standpoint, Excalibur works perfectly fine. There are several events that happen, and while a few plot beats come out of nowhere, on paper, it's the story of King Arthur.
On paper, what is the story of King Arthur? Is it a theme, or is it a series of plot events that define something? Like, again, there has to be a series of events for it to be King Arthur. King Arthur has a certain set of objective things that happen in it. There has to be a sword, there has to be a stone, there has to be an Uther Pendragon, there has to be a woman, there has to be a Lancelot, there has to be a betrayal. I mean, Guinevere, by the way. There has to be a Percival and a Grail. Like, if it's not, then it's just pieces of it. But again, now we're talking about what everybody saw in the beginning of the video and why I made that video. It's like, we're talking about comparative mythology. There are common objective elements to comparative mythology. They don't all have to fit. But you have to have some sort of structure and format for people to want to watch what you're doing. So emotive themes are only in place because of the mechanical actions that are being impacted on the genetic aspect of how we feel. You know what I mean? Kicking the dog. Why is kicking the dog bad? Because everybody loves dogs. Everybody has a pet dog. Everybody has some sort of thing that they understand. They empathize with something that doesn't have the same level of sentience. That's not subjective. That is something that is going to be subject to what people are inclined to be automatically. It's not tabula rasa. It's putting on a show for people.
Swear faith to me, and you shall have mercy. I need battle lords such as you.
What the film falters.
Oh, it's King Arthur. Is the Excalibur movie is based on King Arthur, by the way. That's news.
Was characterization and how it rushed through its themes. But on the other hand, dismissing the film's stunning visuals and music in order to focus on just the plot and how the plot flows is a huge disservice to Excalibur.
Okay, but maybe the movie didn't do as well as it could have done if it was more plot-oriented. Did you ever think about that? Like, there is an argument. There are arguments. There are things to do.
The plot is easy to talk about. You don't need to study cinematography to get it. It's also the easiest thing to lie about.
But if you study cinematography, maybe you'll be able to tell a better story. Do you understand? Like, everything is an assistance to each other. You know, if you have, if you are a hockey player, and someone would say, why are you doing, what do you call it, marathons? Why are you running, 5Ks or whatever? You're an ice skater. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? You don't think that doing this running and this pacing and this long-term, this long range, what am I talking about? Like somebody that is doing a tangential type of activity that's not immediately associated with what they're doing will enrich their abilities. If you're doing long range, runs or whatever, and not just sprints back and forth, that will help you with your endurance. Just like how doing burpees or whatever help baseball players, even though they just stand out there most of the time. Like, there's an idea that not doing something somehow is empowering to these people. That's the thing that bothers me. It's like, why wouldn't you want to cover your bases? If you're a director, why don't you want to know cinematography? If you're a writer, why don't you want to know how production works? You can fucking write a better story and avoid certain like the difference between a low budget story and a big budget story is what? Scale? And yet the theme can be the same in both movies. You have to adjust the writing for what you're going to be able to actually produce. So if you're cognizant of everything that's going on, if you're cognizant of all of these different things, if you understand how cinematography works, if you understand how to photograph one thing, then you'll probably be able to apply that to photograph something else. And that'll help you tell the better story. That's why so many filmmakers respect writer-directors, because they're taking their vision and applying it to more things at once. And there's a limited amount of things that you can do. But if you have visual storytelling medium and you learn how to tell something in visuals, how would that not help your plot? How would that not assist your themes? Like, have some fucking meta-analysis, please.
Because, frankly, most people do not follow every component of the plot as it unfolds before them.
No, but again, you may have not have noticed it, but your brain did. Visual setups, plot mechanics, devices. A guy that's always chewing on a cigarette and never smoking it, right? Let's say that a guy, the entire movie, he hasn't smoked a cigarette. And then right at the end when the climax is about to happen and he thinks he's going to die, he finally lights the cigarette. Is that not a storytelling mechanic that tells you something? Subconsciously you realize, oh shit, this is going on. Even if you didn't notice that he hadn't been smoking the whole time. You know what I mean? Or a guy that hasn't been smoking the whole movie. He's been fucking on the nicotine patch and he finally takes the cigarette out. And you're like, oh shit, he's like, fuck this thing. You know, every detail can mean something else. You cannot depend on the audience to pick up on those things. But you have to direct them to the generals. Those specific things you just do anyway. Because you want to tell a multi-layered story. You want to give a full spectrum account. You want to maximize any kind of, it's like min-max. You want to min-max your storytelling. I'm a fucking retard. Damn it.
For the sake of argument, consider Blade Runner, one of the essential sci-fi films of the 80s. The film is on paper about a police officer, Deckard, a Blade Runner, hunting down
this video is made specifically for me. I love it.
Androids, known as replicants, from space. He finds them, exterminates them, and then runs away with a woman he is infatuated with who also happens to be a replicant. On paper, this sounds unremarkable, cliche almost. So much of this story is told, however, through subtle means outside of the main plot. For one, Deckard always looks miserable. Hunting replicants is never shown to be
How can he do this though? How can he say like the cinema, like point out one detail and then be like, but actually the details tell more of a story? Like it's literally just what I said.
Exciting or thrilling. One replicant runs from Deckard before being gunned down. The final replicant, Batty, chases Deckard across the city and ultimately saves him before talking about the nature of life and passing away.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
We're shown these dark, crowded streets.
Attack shits.
Promoting life on the off-world colonies. We're seeing an overpopulated city and the promise of somewhere better. We learn also that these colonies are being built primarily through the slave labor of the replicants, who are given only 4 years to live. And many replicants are so human that it's almost impossible to...
Okay, but here's the thing. Analysis. Kowalski. Analysis. Is it in the script? If it's in the script, then it's an explicit part of the story. And then that's it. You understand what I'm saying? If they wrote, and I know because I've read this script multiple fucking times, all of those like off-world colony things were in the script. So, and there's actually more. I could pull it up. I'm not going to, but maybe I will in the future. Like just read out loud all of the Blade Runner advertisements. You're actually missing things. And then on top of that, what's funny to me is that Blade Runner is a poor man's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in a lot of ways, where Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep had a lot more going on based on the plot. In fact, Dades or whatever is actually, Dick always complained that Ridley Scott and Hampton Fancher turned it into just sort of detective fiction. But the irony is that Dick made detective fiction. Like that's what that story is. And yet at the same time, it's made bigger than that because it's that. Because he's like, no, actually, it's not about that. It's actually about this guy who's dealing with all of these things inside. And you go, wow, that's way more interesting than the Chandler book. But I think it's if somebody is praising Blade Runner for showing like actually Deckard has more going on, it's doing more service to Dick than intended. So there's a lot of interesting layers of this stuff that's going on. But what's funny is that when you talk about like this plot hole stuff and what he's going to bring up, because I remember this, there isn't really a plot hole that has to do with this story at all. So all of the storytelling elements are in the script. They're all explicit. So how is this not a good example of being logical about everything that you're doing? You know, the real aspect of subjectivity is actually in the cinematography. That's the thing that Mr. Anthony, is missing. Most of the subjective stuff is the lighting. Where are all the light sources coming from? Why are there giant xenon lights inside the apartment going back and forth? That doesn't make any sense. Why are they coming through the skylight? And then Ridley's like, oh, well, there's things come flying over. Like, he's trying to, if you know Ridley, he loves to do little nonsense things in the background that don't make any sense. And you don't notice it unless he's doing a bad job or you're paying attention to what Ridley does. He loves shit like that. That's the reason why his movies feel real in comparison to a lot of other movies. Why would you put ostriches and all this random stuff and the like a bunch of Orthodox Hasidic Jews in the background? Because that's Ridley Scott like using his maximalism. He maxed out every frame in the movie as much as possible visually to cover up the fact that the plot isn't as substantiated on as it should be. In fact, it was Harrison Ford that said, I'm a detective that does no detective stuff. So to even again, against what Dick was saying about the story, the movie is still a more thematic because of its pedigree and its heritage than it should be, and less of a detective story that actually is about the minutia. But that's not plot. That's the thing that bothers me about this. The plot in a Chandler book or the plot in a Dashiell Hammett story is just as plain as a plot in a Philip K. Dick story. The intrigue in Dick's story comes from the psychedelic aspect of identity and perception, whereas the Chandler and Dashiell Hammett story comes from the ability for people to socially cloak who they really are, and then Chandler picks up on it. As far as I know, I could be completely wrong about that, but from all of the stuff that I've read, and I'm a big fan of stuff like The Big Sleep, the reason why the detective character is cool is because he knows things that are deeper than the obvious. So to make a good detective story, you need the plot mechanic aspect to make perfect sense, and then you need there to be a level of intuition that the detective has that makes people go, wow, our main character is awesome. That's why Columbo is always going, one more thing, because he leads you up to the point where you think everything is okay, and then he flips the script on you, and you realize actually there's something more to this. That's the excitement of a detective story. That's why Blade Runner is cool. Because it's giving you a subconscious pretext and a physical pretext. And these things are at odds with each other. But the problem is Blade Runner would actually be a lot better if Deckard was a better character. And almost everybody from Rutger Hauer to fucking Ridley Scott to Harrison Ford himself basically says that. So the weak aspect that he's defending about Blade Runner is not something I would defend. I would say that actually the criticism of Blade Runner and the reason why it's not as well loved as it should be, and the reason why people like 2049 more than the original and think that it's boring, is because it doesn't have enough of this plot-oriented stuff. But again, it's like a Dune problem. If you really wanted to make Blade Runner into the piece that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep wanted it to be, it would be a 5-hour movie. So Blade Runner is a trimmed down 1.5-hour movie, bloated by all of this awesome visual, textural, beautiful, musical stuff. Movies don't usually get away with that, but Ridley Scott does because he's so much fucking better than everybody else at it. Because he makes the movies that have he looks at 50 different glasses before he decides which one's going to be on the table. He's insane. You got to have that level of insanity. And to achieve that, you have to do 1,000 commercials. You have to be a visual artist like Ridley. Like Ridley is a fucking, like, he's competitive. You have to understand, it's not this loose lefty milquetoast, oh, I'm just going to make a movie I feel good about. No, you're in a competitive medium where you're trying to fucking make the best shit ever. Fuck you. I'm not competing with fucking some random Netflix shit. I'm competing with Lawrence of Arabia. I'm competing with Star Wars. I'm not going to compete with lesser shit. That doesn't make me better than your movie. I want to be a better director than you. I want to be a better writer than you. And as an audience member, I want you to be as good as my favorite shit. Deal with it. Know your place and shut your mouth.
Them apart without exact tests. And some of these replicants don't even realize that they're human.
She doesn't know.
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Commerce.
A blanket plot summary would overlook these key details of the film. That's why there's more to a film than its plot.
But who does fucking plot summaries of Blade Runner? And it's just the plot. Who's he talking about? Like, in my opinion, the best Blade Runner YouTube review is from Razorfist, and he loves it. He adores it. And then a good discussion is the Red Letter Media one because it has two opposing views. So fucking what? Like, and again, this is one of my favorite movies, and people are like, well, I think it's boring. I'm like, yeah, well, it's because it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Some people think Citizen Kane sucks. Orson Welles didn't think it was that great. What do you want? It's called an opinion.
Experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave.
Now, I'm not here to talk about Blade Runner today.
Yeah. Great movie.
But I can if you ask me to. The point...
Do it! Please. I bet it would actually be better than this. Don't talk about this. Don't EFAP. It's not good.
This little exercise is to highlight how little some people engage with media outside of the plot. In fact, studios realize that audiences might not pick up on any of this.
No, dude. It's the theme shit again, dude. Like, I really, really like Mahler's videos, for example, because as a writer, I feel like, wow, this guy's the best editor of all time. He notices everything. He's paying attention. He's got all the switches on. I should have him review my shit. And he won't do it, but because it's like, too personal or whatever and too much time. But regardless of all of that shit, the point is that the reason why the fixation is there is because that is so important, because that's somebody noticing that all the things that they like have that. So they want to be able to know how to do that. A lot of the critic people are students of another name, in my opinion. A lot of young people who make criticism, they can't make a movie. They don't have the friends to do it. They don't have the money to do it. They don't have the equipment. They want to do it. The only thing that they can have is their opinion. The only thing that they can do is talk about it. So they focus on what they think is important. So if one person's telling me themes matter more than mechanics and these two people are disagreeing, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Are you buying my tickets? Are you buying tickets to the shit that we're making? Is it good? Are either of you? You should both say that theme guy should tell me my movie fucking rules because the themes rule, and logic guy should tell me the movie's fucking great because it has great storytelling and logic. If both guys like my movie, I win. How is that hard to understand? That's what I want. I want to win.
Any of the story, all this stuff beyond the plot, they wouldn't pick up on. That's why they forced Ridley Scott to make Harrison Ford spell out the subtext to audiences in one of the most widely criticized elements of the theatrical cut of Blade Runner.
Recreational. They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper.
Harrison Ford's bored, exhausted narration, where he just tells you what's happening in front of you.
I quit. This isn't a good example because there is narration in the original script that got cut because Ridley Scott wanted it to be more open. Then Ridley Scott and not Ivor Powell, but I think Ivor Powell also went. But God, what's his name? The British film producer whose name I should know, was fired with Ridley Scott because they went over budget, past the amount that was allotted for their over budget thing. They got fired from the film, but unofficially they were still working basically. Then when the movie got printed and was done, they were like, oh, we want to put a fucking narration on because nobody's going to understand what's going on. So the theatrical cut has this narration that's written by a completely separate party, done way after the fact, not approved by the director, not approved by the producers, not from the original script, completely tacked on. So studio meddling was the problem here. The financiers were pissed off because they were putting their personal money into the project that Ridley Scott was taking selfishly, and then they decided to fuck the movie up. And that's why it took until 2008 for the movie to be quote unquote complete. So I feel like this is really disingenuous or ignorant to try and like conflate plot logic people with the narration from Blade Runner. That's fucking nonsense, dude. The movie could have had good narration if they did the Hampton Fancher version.
Because I'd had a belly full of killing, but then I'd rather be a killer than a victim. And that's exactly what Bryant's threat about little people meant.
Cold fish. That's what my wife called me. Sushi. she blah, 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 and then divorced me. Like, it's so stupid. The narration is so bad. But the idea of narration is not bad. The idea of narration could work.
This is widely seen as a big mistake. That being said, some bad media critics might need this. They might not get the plot otherwise, unless it's spelled out to them by a bored Harrison Ford draft.
See, this is the thing. It's like the idea that people can't understand Blade Runner. Who has not understood Blade Runner? Who has said that? Like, Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo. Fucking double L's. Guillermo del Toro has once said, he likes the theatrical version. He likes the narration. And then Frank Darabont said, I hate the narration. Ruins everything. These guys are both great filmmakers, and that's their opinion. Ridley Scott didn't like it, so he removed it. And you know what's awesome? When you buy the disc set, you get all versions of it. So they can all exist. And you can just watch whichever one you want. But who's stupid to the point that they don't understand the basic plot of Blade Runner? What the fuck? Everybody understands this. I don't know who he's talking about.
Back at 4 o'clock in the morning to read a script.
Just out of curiosity, if a landmass has this much of a reputation, why is it just now being discovered?
Because if, let's say they might just shout plot hole whenever... Here's an example of a plot hole in Blade Runner. During Batty's final speech to Deckard, he mentioned, going to Orion, which is a star system deep in space. Way longer than the 4 years lifespan could ever allow you to travel.
Why? Hold on a second. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, I know this is dead air. So one of the issues is that Orion is a constellation, so it looks like it's one thing from here, but obviously it's like if you want to go to Rigel, it's 860 light years away. Alnilam, the middle star, is 1300 light years away. Bellatrix is 243 light years. So what's the shoulder of Orion? And then at the same time it's like, why does he actually have to go to Orion to see something off the shoulder of it? If you can see Orion from here, and it's 1,000 light years away or whatever, or multiple, 243 to 1,300, then so he could be anywhere. He doesn't have to be in Orion. But if you watched the movie, you would know that. No, he just made a mistake, like interpretation. And who gives a fuck? It's not a plot hole. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. He saw him in a battle. He could be making it up. He said you wouldn't believe it. And this guy doesn't.
Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion.
Now, some might argue that's a technical plot hole. I argue
it's a technical plot hole. Like, what's a C-beam? What is a C-beam? What is it? Is it a plot hole that I don't know what a C-beam is?
Doesn't matter, because the focus on that scene is to show that Batty has seen things, and all these moments will be lost in time, like
tears in rain.
Yeah, but he said it explicitly in the script. That's not a theme. He said it. He literally went. He literally explained it. Like dialogue-driven movie. What's not explicit about? How can you mess that up? He just explained what it was. That's explicit. There's nothing implicit. It's not interpretive. He's saying, like, I don't get it. Let's say that you cut that piece out of the Orion, and he's still saying the same thing. But he needs examples. He's like, I've seen this thing. I've seen this thing. Those examples set up the emotion. So again, plot mechanics need to exist to have your emotion. It's fucking crazy.
And that's compelling. The emotion is compelling. The technical details, who cares?
The technical details are required to have the emotion. Like, the character's going to sacrifice themselves to save the day. We see that in so many movies. You have to justify it with a technical detail. Because why can't they just do something to fix it? You need to have an irascible problem requiring an irascible setup. Like, please, to have the visual, to have a movie, the technical details matter. If we don't have technical details, we don't have enough light going through the lens. If we don't have enough we need a certain amount of foot candles, a certain amount of lux here. How many nits what ratio are we using to light the character's face? What's the distance? What focal length do we need? Are we shooting on film? What are we doing? We need technical details here. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It's like the theme of farming is knowing that you have food to eat and that makes you feel good about your family. The technical details don't matter. Like, no, they really do. They're everything. You get emotive about the technical details because they're setting up everything. That's the mastery. The technical details of iambic pentameter are what make the poetry amazing. Like, it'll just, you know what I mean? It's like, to make a souffle, the technical details matter, but how it makes you feel is what you're going to walk away with. Like, please stop negating, like, it's like the actual work. You're denigrating work and expertise and hyping up your own farts and emotions.
Is that Batty has seen things, these things matter, and that in a few minutes, it'll be forgotten. The themes are more powerful than the technical elements of the plot. But if you approached every film like a CinemaSin sticker, then you'd say, oh, plot hole, this movie's bad. Like, who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't affect your enjoyment.
I don't know why he saved my life.
What?
Maybe in those last moments he loved life more than he ever had before.
Part of the reason why the question, if
bruh, what the fuck?
As a replicant annoys me is because people get caught up in the technicalities and not the why.
Who gets caught up in the technicalities of Blade Runner? What are you talking about?
The question being unanswered is so important.
Okay, I think, fam, I think I have actually hit it. What is it? We're 82 minutes in? Let's see here. 1 hour, 24-minute live. I'm officially frustrated.
Because it forces...
Just wanted you to know, like, up until this moment, it was okay, but now I'm frustrated.
Audiences to question human nature. As they say in the film...
It's too bad she won't live! But then again, who does?
Now that question is...
God, this is so frustrating, because, like, narration on or off is a technical detail. Having the ending where they leave to go to paradise versus the movie ends when they close the elevator door, like, that's a technical detail. This shit drives me crazy.
More profound than an hour-long fan theory video breaking down the evidence for this theory. The theory is told in brushstrokes on a canvas, not a chart. It's impressionistic, not concrete.
No! You get an impression based on the concrete. God. This is so fucking hilarious. Let me tell you something. My grandfather was a photographer. My great-grandfather was a photographer. My grandfather was a painter. My father is a filmmaker. So my family has this long tradition of fucking visual stuff. And every time that I go into any of these things, it's like they were all studious people that really paid attention to the details. And yet my grandfather as an artist was an impressionist painter. But all of his work, you can see, like, he took care to put a vanishing point, to have technical perspective, you know? And then he would modify it so that you would have a different perspective on what the image would be. He would make false colors. He would give you a different emotive feel by intentionally doing things that you wouldn't consider to be correct, you know? And that was the creative aspect that was his style expression. But to do that, he was a technical guy. He understood all of the oil paint mixtures, you know? He did, you know, he had taken photography and he had been a photographer for the United States Army and all that stuff. It's like, every time I think about the amount of work that my family and the benefit that I've gotten, how I got the education, how I got my start, all of that is from this effort to do your best technical work so that the art leaves the best impression. And all of that is insulted by this type of talking to me. Now, I'm sure that that's not something that someone takes into consideration when they make these kinds of statements. Should be more careful about, like, hey, am I actually insulting all of the technical craftsmen that make all this emotive bullshit that I care about important? Because it's not, like, it is the intention. We're trying to make a good story so that you feel something. But, fuck, man. If you just wanted that, you can log on to TikTok and watch a fucking, you know, dodo video of somebody who saved an animal. If you just want to feel good, or if you want to feel bad, you can go and watch a video where you learn how somebody got murdered or something like that. Like, if you're just an emotional fucking drug junkie and that's all you're looking for in the film, or you're some sort of pseudo-intellectual who's like trying to see more in a fucking motion picture made for entertainment, you need to check yourself. Like, it's a movie, and we all know it's just a movie. But to just make a movie requires all of this effort. So if we're going to have this full spectrum respect and understanding for everything, and also have a good sensibility about it, like, we have to think about every aspect of it. It's not just, oh, I pay attention to this, so I'm the genius and I know everything, yet I don't know everything. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be like shitting on somebody else's. I can't shit on the camera department because I work in costuming. You know, both of what we do really matters, and we don't know everything about the other department. But if I know a little bit, I'm better in general. So please be more holistic about everything. Please give respect. Okay.
The thing is with bad media criticism.
And yeah, I like dodo videos. I like that feeling, but it's not the same as watching The Northman.
The ultimate point is to keep you engaged. That's why the sins ticker goes up. That's why a new criticism is made every second. More vitriolic than the last. If you think about some of the criticisms critically, you'll pick them apart. Good media criticism forces you to reevaluate a text, and even if you disagree, you might have at least thought about it. Erroneous criticism.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Good criticism can just confirm what you believe in. And that's what a lot of people go for. It can just tell you, it can just organize a thought that you had into something that you couldn't put together yourself. Or, you know, but I don't understand how being plot oriented or something like what Mahler does, it doesn't do the same thing. Any kind of criticism that's good or worth its salt is either something that is logically confirming something, or telling you something new, or contradicting something that you got wrong. I don't think there's more to it than that. I'm trying to think.
Which I'm definitely guilty of. You know, they might make you, that's when you make an error once or twice or 3 times. It's in good faith, but you might make an error about something. Even then, that still forces you to go, hey, wait a second, that's wrong. And then the critic, if they're being in good faith, will go, oh, you're right, I am wrong, I apologize. Or to some extent to revise their argument. That's good faith criticism.
I don't think that anything that he's covering is bad faith criticism then, except for CinemaSins, which admits that it is.
Faith criticism comes from the approach that I am right, you are wrong, no matter what you say I am right, and I will always be right even if you point out every error I made and spelled it out to me.
Fandom discourse is full of self-contradictory phrases that people love to say a lot but don't actually adhere to. Chief among them is, I respect your opinion even though I disagree with it. This is an oxymoron.
That is the key difference. The refusal to accept when you are wrong.
Okay, so who's wrong?
If you're negative, you're gonna have the screeching of 1,000 illiterate fucksticks descend upon you like a horde of sweaty,
well, Lily Orchard is wrong. So
unwashed transphobic bats.
And the insistence on doubling down when you are wrong.
Ooh, that's lolcow shit, but I don't know how Az is wrong.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
I'm sorry, this is an all-timer. This is like Meme City. He was so based for this. Like, okay, Az's channel is called Heels versus Babyface. And if you're not a wrestling fan, you won't understand that. What he just cut is a heel promo. Because in wrestling, babyface are the good guys and heels are the bad guys. So Az is intentionally taking the heel, and he's cutting a heel promo, meaning that he's intentionally setting people off, knowing that they're going to come at him for this. And yet, there isn't going to be an argument that's made about the pronoun shit. He's just going to flash this and assume that his audience confirms with his bias.
Bad media criticism's ultimate goal, though.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
Bad media criticism's
no argument.
Ultimate goal, though, is to supplant the original media in your mind. And the way they do that is...
Why not the good faith one then? Doesn't that change it as well? Wouldn't theoretically a good faith argument be exactly the same? It would change the way, he just said, it changes the way that you perceive it.
By sometimes just making shit up.
Characters as powerful as Dream, or as supposedly perfect as Superman, are well liked and aren't usually considered Mary Sue's, is because the plot doesn't treat them as such.
Yes.
If a fresh-faced farm boy who's never even seen a sword suddenly picks one up, and without any kind of outside, divine, or supernatural aid, defeats a war veteran of 15 years in single combat,
does the... Okay. Change veteran to moon-sized space station. Okay, so farm boy defeats the moon-sized space station by picking up his thing and shooting with... But he has the Force. So does the Force make him a Mary Sue? Because Luke was... Hold on a second. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Fucking A, bro. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry about that. That's pretty funny, actually, though. So I got guys in the area doing fiber, and so they're like knocking on my door and shit, and I'm like, oh, I want fiber. I do. I want the upstream and all that stuff, but I'm less inclined now because I keep getting annoyed, and I realized I need to put a no solicitor thing on my door. Okay. Sorry, boys and girls that don't exist on the internet.
You likely just witnessed a Mary Sue moment.
Trained my entire life to master my senses. Where did you train? On a farm?
Where did you literally train, on a farm?
Plot doesn't treat them as such.
They'll either misrepresent scenes.
I mean, it's... Has Literature Devil ever criticized Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman? I'm not aware. But what's funny is that if you take an example from something that sucks for other reasons and you try to use it to justify your thing, it becomes a more complicated thing. You get what I'm saying?
Omit key details to make their point land better, or in some cases, lie.
So this is pretty wild. In spite of mostly positive reviews from both sides of the culture war, Disney's X-Men 97 appears to be a complete flop in terms of viewership.
And don't worry, we're going to go into a couple examples of that soon enough. But the question you might have is, why would they do that?
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
The reason is ultimately engagement. The algorithm on YouTube, and honestly the internet at large, rewards engagement. The longer you stay on something, the better it is. The more you click on it, the better it is. What keeps someone engaged? New reasons to be emotionally invested, either to be angry or to be frustrated or justified in your own predetermined beliefs before coming to the page or the video. This is why you usually see a lot of two kinds of reviews on YouTube. Concise and straightforward reviews that make a point and then end, or the massive sprawling videos that go on for hours and hours and hours and end, sometimes longer than the source material itself.
Oh, there's the EFAP argument. God damn. Okay, so too long didn't read. Having a conversation about a film that's longer than the film itself, expected, because you're talking about elements that are taken. You need to digest and have a conversation about each element. Then on top of that, when you really think about it, it's like, how long do you think it takes for somebody to write a script? A lot longer than the actual script. How long do you think it takes to shoot a film? Longer than the actions in the film. Like, that's the point. All media requires a lot of preparation before you do it. You can't just go out there and wing it. You have to put a certain amount of extra emphasis to get a smaller amount of stuff in it. You know what I mean?
Long-form reviews are very entertaining if you get the right people working on them. Or at the very least, they're the kind of thing you can listen to while doing other work. I mean, you can tune in and you can follow along very well. I'm sure some of you are doing that with this video right now. When I was in college, I wrote essays while listening to Red Letter Media's Star Wars reviews.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son.
However, to keep audiences engaged and for longer, what a lot of reviewers resort to is hyper-emphasizing the negative, finding new things to critique every 5 seconds. Focus on a new plot hole, focus on a new cliche, focus on a new trick that pulls the plot along.
Have you noticed how I'm not like saying a lot right here? It's because it's like, this is like we were on the river. It was just kind of like going along, and now we're in the rapids and we're just bouncing up and down, like we're just cascading down. Like each statement could be another like pebble that just is reverberating across the lake. We're just tumbling down with this doubling down on these statements that just go on and on and on about how everybody's wrong about whatever because they're not doing something or they're doing too much of something. But this is all just like the fluff around the main core thing, which is I don't like what they're talking about.
In order to trick you into thinking you're having fun.
Oh, they're tricking you. I'm not actually having fun right now.
In the more extreme examples, anything that tries to invoke an emotion in the audience is deemed manipulative. It's deemed cheap by the critic. Now, a bad faith media critic will take away the themes and ideas of a work in order to solve the problems the media presents, it being good being that problem. Why is The Last Jedi so awful? How is Steven Universe bad, actually? How is Sherlock bad, actually? Oh, wait, that actually was a good video.
Oh, it's a good video because it's H. Bomber Guy, right? Let's see here. What was the one that he was...
That actually was a good video.
No,
actually.
Not that one.
Why is The Last Jedi so awful?
Oh, of course. Of course.
How is Steven Universe bad, actually? How is Sherlock bad, actually? Oh, wait, that actually was a good video, actually.
Oh, the Mahler one was bad, but the H. Bomber guy one was good. My biases are not involved.
Why is Totally Spies just 99 DeviantArt fetishes? Okay, well, that's actually just not a video on YouTube, I think, but it should be. I'm done dodging around the point, though. What are some examples of bad media criticism? Let's start with the Mary Sue criticism. One of the more widely used ones. Every female character is stamped with this moniker, from Captain Marvel to Rey Skywalker.
Okay, the Mary Sue criticism. He's saying, so it's not... He's not disagreeing that Mary Sues are bad. He's just disagreeing that the ones that are considered Mary Sues are considered Mary Sues, right?
And does this always apply?
Luke Skywalker stands as a good character, and why Rey stands as a lifeless, blatant Mary Sue.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Okay. If it is, then it is. So then what? What now? Now it's your opinion and I disagree. Now, literally now what? Literally, what do we do now? Where is there to go?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, what's a Mary Sue anyway? The origins of the term date back to the Star Trek fandom, as a parody of the self-insert characters who are just good at everything they do, and everyone loves them, and they're just fantastic, they can do no wrong, and they're just better than everyone else. Making fun of pure wish fulfillment. Now, what separates a true Mary Sue from, say, your Luke Skywalkers or other heroes is the lack of struggle.
Pushed onto us under the thin veneer of homage, the stories of Rey and Luke Skywalker make a fairly easy side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, like, I remember this. Oh, fucking hell, dude. And then Mahler was, like, explaining it's this and that. And, like, these hyper-fixation on details. Suddenly all the details matter when it's criticism, but the technical details don't matter when it's the actual movie. Like... You can't have it both ways, dude. You can't be saying that, well, Literature Devil actually got this wrong. And then when somebody says, well, the movie got this wrong, then it's wrong. Like, this is like gatekeeping who gets to have an opinion on what the thing should be. Which is unnecessary.
Everything should just come to the character naturally being able to do everything without needing to grow or develop. They start at a point of perfect skill level and never need to improve. And outside of skill level, they also just have perfect relationships with everyone.
Which means Rey and Luke are both expected to begin their journey as relatively normal people, discounting legendary fathers, ancient prophecies, etc.
Let's look at a few common criticisms of Rey to see why people think she's a Mary Sue.
Luke Skywalker is introduced with a particular set of skills such as general knowledge on droids, how to drive, and how to use weaponry. Now, how does he know these things? Believe it or not, the movie doesn't need to tell us directly. It is a movie after all. It can show us things, and we, as the audience, can make logical connections. Rey doesn't have anything for the audience to connect with. Instead, the movie decides to focus on how alone she is. In fact, you could say that she's almost like a human version of Pixar's WALL-E, without the humanity. Luke was taught farming skills by his uncle because his uncle was a farmer. The movie spends a decent amount of time establishing this fact, while Rey can scavenge and survive alone on the desert home planet because she's just awesome.
So one big criticism of Rey is that she seems to be good at everything. She never loses a fight, she knows the Millennium Falcon better than Han does, can do the Force without training. So let's break a couple of these down.
3 different systems. What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
The easiest scene to discuss is the scene where Rey fixes the Falcon's hyperdrive.
Again, like, I could be saying blah, 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 compressor, blah, 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 this. But if you watch the EFAP of this, or you watched any fucking video that criticizes Rey, any of them, you all know this. You know? This is fucking pointless. Doing this, trying this, whatever this is, this is just beyond cope. We're beyond cope. We're now... You know, we're now in the elven lands of cope.
Rey fixing the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo, its former owner. The usual defense for this is that Rey is a scavenger and lives alone, and can therefore fix things like a trained mechanic, but we don't know this for sure.
Most bad faith criticisms ignore the fact that she was aware of the modifications made to the Falcon, since Han had it.
Some moof milker put a compressor on the ignition line.
Uncle plugged it. I thought it was a mistake too, but it's too much stress on the hyperdrive.
And during a key scene...
How does she know about that? Like... people that are literally thinking, like, I want to hate this character. It's like, no, I don't like that. This character just knows shit. You know what I mean? Like, I had the same fucking criticism for Anakin. He just knows, he's just so good at everything. It's not the Force that's doing it. It's not like, it's not like he has, let me put it this way. Because, sorry about that. I just had to take a puff of my cigarette. When Literature Devil is talking about supernatural aid, and I'm glad somebody in the comments section pointed this out, in the chat section, he's saying that there are ways that you could have this supernatural aid. What I want to add on top of that is the Force is a glue that fits all of the mythical elements together, but it's not a get out of jail free card. It's not, you know, R2-D2 can't just have any tool in existence in his fucking arsenal. It becomes ridiculous. So if you have something like Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Luke to use the Force, that justifies to the audience a lot more than Luke just doing that. You know? If somebody is instructing the character to do something, then it justifies that character who doesn't really know what they're doing that thing. And there's a lot of, I can think of a lot of anime where there's like, you know, some characters in the mind of the other character and telling them how to do stuff, or taking over their body and doing things that they don't normally know how to do, that kind of stuff. Or unlocking something in their spiritual DNA or whatever, their blood that they didn't know existed. There's a lot of that. But Rey at no point gives you information that makes you want to be her friend or whatever. Like, most characters that are cool, you're like, damn, that's a cool guy. You know, I want to be like, what do you call it? Band of Brothers. You know, Captain Winters. I would follow that man into combat. You know, oh yeah, Aragorn's really cool. I wish he was my king. And then there's the aspect of, I want to be the character. Oh man, I really want to be like Aragorn. Strider, 80-year-old man, but he's like in his 30s. And so he's going to live a really long time, and he gets to be, he's really the king, and he's got all these ranger abilities and some secret elven abilities. He's got all this hidden, he's knows how to hide and blend in and all that stuff. What a badass character. But at no point is Rey a character that you want to associate with in an ensemble sense as yourself, or be and imagine yourself as a fantasy character. Because the idea that you can just, I can just fucking solve any problem. Like, oh, what am I, a fucking god? I don't fucking fantasize about being God like that. That's a completely different character. That's a completely different fantasy. It's not interesting as a person. It's not even a personification. It's not even like, oh, I'm playing as Kratos, who's the god of war. There has to be some humbling of a character for them to be interesting. They can't just go fucking 1,000-0 versus every character and stay interesting. It's stupid.
Bypasses a modification made after Han lost the Falcon that made the Falcon function worse.
I bypassed the compressor.
And once more, the movie had the...
Yeah, why though? Like, if she was if Unkar Plutt put her to work as a mechanic, kind of like Anakin or whatever, if Rey grew up and her mentor character was like, here's how you fix a YT-1300 transport, and then he's like, put this on the compressor to bypass it. She's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Then you would set it up. It's called setup and payoff. Like, that's why it's bad filmmaking. It's like, it's not even just bad for Rey as a character. It's that J.J. Abrams is bad as a director, or whoever wrote that was missing that part. Like, you're missing all of the parts. Luke Skywalker, you see the T-16 in the background, right? So they go, oh, Rey Skywalker, see the fucking transport in the background. But there's nothing that says that she knows how to fly it, because she doesn't know how to fly it. And then she flies it better than Luke flies the X-Wing. Like, Luke is the last guy because he's the least trained. Like, missing technical details, you fuck your shit up, dude. Pay attention.
Perfect opportunity for a setup, and missed it entirely.
Some moof milker put a compressor on the ignition lock.
But we don't know this for sure.
That's all information she's seen firsthand, so naturally she knows this.
How? When has the thing flown? She's never been in space. So she flew. Did she fly it around in the atmosphere? You know what would help? If there was a line where Rey said, let's get to the ship. Hurry, Finn. There's a ship I know how to fly. How do you know how to fly it? Sometimes I take Unkar Plutt to the bank on whatever planet. Sometimes he lets me fly it by myself. Like, give me something. Stop justifying this shit character because it's poorly written. Rey could be a good character. They fucked it up. It's that simple.
Rey is introduced with unexplained expert fighting skills, technical skills, and magical expert level piloting skills despite only dabbling. Still no sign of a mentor, and she uses all these skills to save the day.
As for fighting, well, Rey grew up on a desert world where scavengers fight for scrap.
What does growing up on a desert world mean? What does that entail? With Anakin, he lived in a desert house. He had a mother, The mother was the one that raised him. She was a slave. He's a slave. Watto puts him to work in the junkyard. The junkyard is where he's able to collect the parts for the stuff that he has. He's got the largest, midichlorian count, the Kwisatz Haderach count or whatever. So he's got all the mana and the points in the world and high fucking luck points or whatever. And then he starts racing his fucking pod racer. He's already raced it before. So, like, we have know all this information, and it's just visual. And then if you go to the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker we see as a farmhand. We know that he's the guy that fixes all the droids and cleans all the shit and does all the equipment. We know that he's probably the guy that does the most amount of work on the moisture farmers. He also flies this T-16 and has an interest in doing the spaceships shit. So, is it a reach that he could fly in space well? Yes. It's lucky he had the Force, yes. But you can't base everything on the Force. That's cheap. And Rey is cheap. We never get a sense that Rey knows what she's doing. And by the way, Luke gets knocked over by one guy. And he almost dies. Like, he gets his ass kicked in the beginning of the movie. And then Obi-Wan has to come and help him. You know what I mean? Like, Rey is kicking ass. She doesn't need Finn's help. Because she's a strong woman. Like, it's patently, opaquely obvious what is going on here. And we all just have to act like it's not true. Well, that's not my business.
We even see her fighting in the background of a scene, demonstrating her lived experience.
Yeah, that's one example of why people are upset. We don't see her training. It would be different if Rey had grown up and she had a fucking Imperial training droid that she had found and put together, and it was like a hologram, and the hologram was like, "Cadet, today you will be studying how to shoot a pistol." And she had a fucking busted pistol that she fixed together, and she took training lessons from the hologram. Nobody would give a fuck. Like, there's ways to do this. They just didn't do it. It's just lazy. It's just hacks doing it. Stop trying to fucking sweep for them.
Before she demonstrates it in a fight. What lived experiences Luke Skywalker have fighting?
Where did you train?
He gets his ass kicked.
On a farm?
He's plays with
Luke in the fucking... He has to get he gets beaten up by the Tusken Raider. Luke, he gets knocked over in the Tatooine bar in Mos Eisley, right? And Obi-Wan has to save him twice. Luke is not able to save Obi-Wan with his gun shooting powers, right? He gets his ass kicked on Empire Strikes Back. The only reason why he's winning in Return of the Jedi is because he can sense that his rage is driving him, which means the dark side of the Force. And then ultimately his sacrifice. So Luke as a hero is so loved by people because he's constantly getting his ass kicked. So when we see him win, when we see him in Return of the Jedi being a badass, that's why we cheer. He earned it by getting his ass kicked. That's how... Has anybody fucking watched a Hulk Hogan match? It's the same every time. He's doing really well, and then he fucking starts getting his ass kicked. He's almost getting knocked out by the finisher move. Then he hulks up and guts up and uses the Force. He does the boot and whatever, and he does the leg drop and he wins. And everybody goes crazy. That's the hero's journey. What the fuck, man? It's so obvious. This is carny shit. Like, people have known this forever. This is ancient fucking putting on a show wisdom.
Toys all his life.
A scavenger, without the benefit of
Fuck's
Finn's
sake,
decades
man.
of military-level training, has no sign of a mentor and is completely self-taught. How does she fare against Kylo Ren, who, if you recall, has been trained by not one, but two legendary mentors?
So let's count the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Literature Devil's making a lot of sense.
Rey wins a fight on her own without any help. Now, we're going to ignore any Stormtrooper fights because, honestly, who in Star Wars can't just fight through Stormtroopers?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going through my head. There's a little bit of a truth there, actually, because they are like the droids, where George is like, they cut them down like butter. However, what about the opening scene where the stormtroopers kill all of the rebels? What about the stormtroopers on Hoth? I don't know. The Imperials are actually a really good force, except when the principal characters are around. So the only thing that you could really claim is that the stormtroopers' accuracy is really bad around protagonists that have a buff on them, called plot armor.
It's redundant to discuss that. So her first major fight is in The Force Awakens, where she fights Kylo Ren, and she's beaten in 5 seconds and then gets kidnapped.
Oh, really? That's all that happens? Interesting. When between this period and the end did she learn how to use a lightsaber? Anybody guess? When did she get trained in a lightsaber by the end of the fucking movie?
Later she fights Kylo Ren again, and
how did she learn how to do that hand thing? Luke did not know how to do the hand gesture thing until Empire Strikes Back.
Has had a hole blasted in him by Chewie and just fought Finn. And that fight ends with the planet breaking.
Yeah, but she's able to fight him. Look at this. She's like on equal footing with him. And he's not even using anything. What are you talking about?
Part beneath them after Rey lands one hit. So it's not a definitive win.
Yeah, that's fucking owned. She got owned. I mean, he got owned. You got beaten by a girl.
But
you got beaten by a virgin desert smelling girl who doesn't even know how to use a lightsaber. Right? Isn't that the line?
Was winning against a guy who
You literally got bent over with diameter.
But was tired and had a giant hole in his stomach. Then in The Last Jedi, she fights Snoke and gets swung around like a ragdoll. Then she teams up with Kylo Ren against
And then she kills these guys who are just stormtroopers with red armor, basically, according to Anthony.
In guard, and again, only wins with Kylo's help. And they force struggle over a lightsaber, and neither win.
What do you mean neither win? She's again shown as equal. You can't have them be equal. God damn, dude. Do you guys remember fucking, what was this like? I don't know. Let's think of examples. Avatar: The Last Airbender? The fucking plot of Cyberpunk 2077? How many fucking movies have you guys watched? How many stories, anime or whatever, where the protagonist at first thinks they can handle something and then they get their ass kicked at the end of the first act? Like, how many stories are we talking about here? Name one that isn't like that. And yet Rey doesn't obey those logic. I mean, I guess she does a little bit because she gets captured, and then she does she's able to completely defend herself against the mind trick, and then against the Sith power, and then she uses a mind trick on a stormtrooper without ever having been introduced to it before. Then she's able to sneak around on an entire base and get away. And she just does it all by herself. Like, this is just gaslighting, dude. This dude is literally, you're messing with my head, man. What are you doing? You're like messing with my head, fool. You need to get out of my head.
Ambiguous victory on her own until Rise of Skywalker, where she manages to land a serious blow on Kylo Ren, but Kylo Ren is distracted by the memory of his mother at that time. So she lands a hit on a guy whose back is turned to her. And that's
she fucking kills this guy like so honorless. She's like, he's distracted. I'm gonna fucking waste him. She might as well have just fucking thrown a grenade at him, like shoot him in his head while he's sleeping.
The second fight with Kylo Ren in that movie, fourth or fifth.
And she just never is any worse than him. She's always as good as him. Always. Look.
Total, depending on how you count the lightsaber struggle.
He's always like, look at her face too. She's so fucking mongoloid looking.
And then she beats Palpatine
by getting angry. She just hulks up,
turning his Force lightning back at him. So out of all those.
Wow, she just beats the fucking principal protagonist with violence when the message of the 6th movie was, no, the father saves the son, actually, and completes the prophecy. What a fucking terror. J.J. Abrams has fooled everybody by dressing up like Spielberg and Lucas and copying the camera moves. He's fooled everybody into thinking that, like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, he knows how to ruin shit really well.
She only unambiguously wins in the last film, and even then there's some conditional statement that's paired with that.
Narratively speaking, if the goal is to run Rey through a hero's journey, it would be better if she could defend herself but not be able to actually defeat them.
Okay, he's playing the one time, and then if we do Luke, it would be like A New Hope once, Mos Eisley the second time, you know what I mean? And then like the third time, he's about to fucking get his ass kicked by Vader, and when he's gonna blow up the thing, and he's gonna miss, and he requires the help of 2 people. And then in Empire Strikes Back, they're like, he's fucking he gets defeated by the Abominable Snowman, and I'm counting on my fingers. That's 6 so far. Then they're fighting on Hoth, and he gets his fucking ship shot down. So that's 7. Then he goes to Dagobah. Then he's like, I gotta go save my friends. And then he gets his ass kicked. That's 8. Then in Return of the Jedi, he goes in and he tries to, he's like, you will give me Chewbacca, whatever. And then, and then he gets, so does that count? I guess like walking into a trap and fucking up counts as fucking up. And so then he gets captured. Even though he kills the Rancor, but he's still captured. He does the air kick. So I guess he succeeds there. Doesn't he get his ship shot or whatever and falls off of it when he's on Endor and he's on the moon? So that would be 10 because I think he crashes his speeder bike. And then when he gets his ass kicked by the Emperor. So Luke kind of loses at least 11 times off the top of my head. That's 11 times. And your example of Rey is once. Much less Anakin, who's fucking loses the entire thing. Tragedy. He just fucking fails. So, again, the fucking people love a character that gets his ass kicked until the end of the movie. Like, for God's sake, that's Gladiator. That's everything dope. Everybody loves that story. Plucky underdog. But damn, what a disingenuous try and own on Literature Devil. You lose, sir. Good day, sir.
Would show weakness, vulnerability. In other words, it would show her potential, but also lead.
Yeah, and Ken Kaneki, you're 100% right. There's other elements of losses that are more abstract than just failing at an assault or a violent task, which is all I was counting. I was just counting battles. Because like if we're comparing Rey in terms of things that she does right every time plot-wise, it would be innumerable. We'd be in the dozens at that point on both sides of like dozens of times Luke makes a bad decision he tries to make the right decision, but it doesn't work, or he needs assistance. That was why Leia was cool. Like Luke having teammates, they're cooler because he makes mistakes. Finn and Poe are less cool because they can't help Rey really. She can just do everything. So why does she even need them? It's fucking tragic, dude.
Room to grow.
And look, Rey isn't a perfect character. And Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, isn't perfect. You want me to criticize her? Okay. Her entire arc is centered on waiting to be destined for something. The first film, she's waiting for a family. Second film, she's trying to figure out her heritage, her position in this grander story. The fact that The Last Jedi ends without her resolving the core conflict of the plot is a key element. She has no predestined part to play in the saga.
Think about the gravity of that statement. You and I are writing a story, right? And it's fucking... Let's say that... All right, we can be even more specific than that. We're writing the 7th to 9th movie in a saga that's about 2 people previously, where they each had a trilogy, and one was the father and the other one was the son. And then you just make fucking a character that has no predestined place in that universe be the main protagonist of the 7 through 9 ones. That's what you're going to do? This character, the purpose of this character is that they have no purpose. So they can just do whatever. Is that a story? What is that? I don't know what that is.
But through her actions, she becomes the hero. Anyone can be the hero, regardless of where you came from, except no, because the third film shows us she has a lineage, and there's a reason why her family never came back, and she's part of this big grand destiny to stop Palpatine's return. And you get all the answers that completely undermine all the legwork made leading up to this point.
So you think that he's in the Rian Johnson is smart because the character is actually nobody. And it's like, no, either way, it's stupid. It's stupid that she's Palpatine's granddaughter. That's catastrophically stupid. And at the same time, the idea that she wasn't anybody is also stupid because everybody's somebody. So you're undermining what's a good thing what's a good version of what he's talking about? What's the good version of The Last Jedi? And I'll tell you, it's called Kung Fu Panda. And in Kung Fu Panda, the message of the story is that the Dragon Warrior is whoever looks in the mirror in reflection of this scroll. Whoever did all of the things, practiced to get to this point, trained themselves, was able to get the scroll. That person is the Dragon Warrior. And then a bunch of the characters look at it. And they see themselves. And the message is that you are worthy of the destiny because you put the work in. Fu methods and actually put the work in. And while he's doing that, he finds himself and his unique identity. That's the way that you do the story of it doesn't matter who you are. You're nobody. You're an orphan. You don't come from nowhere. That's people like the orphan character that's out of place. It's actually a trope. It's not separate from the, just like how the underlying thematic message to Real World's equivalent is you're not just because you're an orphan, just because you're a misfit doesn't mean you're not part of the tribe. That's how you earn your place. You're a hero. You were exiled from the tribe, or you're the misfit. You're the outsider. Everybody loves that character. Everybody loves that character. So you got to give them more credit than that. That person feels like they have a lot to prove. That's the reason why they want to prove themselves. So I think that is what I would consider that to be. And there are other versions of that story that are really good too. Another one is Enter the 36th Chamber, or the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, where the main character is like, his motivation is that there are Chinese evil bureaucrats, essentially, that are killing the locals who are trying to rebel for the people. And the only way that he can become the hero is by joining the Shaolin monks. And when he shows up, he's so egotistical and he's so full of himself, but he can't do any of the tasks. And it's just a series of chambers. That's why it's called the 36 chambers, because you do all these chambers, and as you complete these chambers, you unlock part of yourself. But as you unlock more of your own identity, you become more like the other monks that are there. Then that's how you become the Jedi, that you force yourself through this thing. And one of the tragedies of the prequels is that we never really got that movie. You could make a Jedi movie that's literally like Jedi Academy, where the whole movie is Luke training a bunch of Jedi, and then at the end, the Jedi have to fight. And throughout that story, this fake episode 7 I'm making up, the Jedi Academy story, the idea that you grow with these young Jedi that are learning how to do it, that would mean that if they die at the end, you have so much weight attached to it. But because Rey just is given everything, you never really feel like you're going to lose anything. Who dies around Rey? She can just fucking bring him back to life, basically. Until she steals the lifeblood from fucking, what's his face, Kylo Ren.
There are genuine issues with the sequel trilogy. Why was Finn set up to be a Jedi and then there's no payoff?
That's Rian Johnson's fault.
Why does The Rise of Skywalker completely veer off track of the story that the prior two films set up?
Because that's Rian Johnson's fault.
Why is Kylo Ren, a character who's positioned to be the big bad, supplanted when he finally gets to a position of power where he can be the villain?
That's J.J. Abrams' fault.
They always wanted to be. These are issues that are harder to discuss than simply going, there's a plot hole, raise a Mary Sue.
No, it's not. Those are the most basic elements. That's why everybody loves Mueller's work on it.
Complex question.
That's why Literature Devil's work on it is valid, and he's made good points that after him showing these clips that I've seen before remind me how good Literature Devil's videos were. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Those were really good videos.
With complex answers. And you're not going to get those from someone who just wants to complain about Rey winning every fight that she partakes in. Honest criticism requires honest thought. And that doesn't always culminate in a dopamine hit to the audience.
I agree. But that's not entertainment. That's education. That's the craft. That's technical details. That's the stuff that's made me miserable and insecure my entire life. I'm not afraid of people's criticism. I'm afraid of my lack of understanding. I'm afraid that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm afraid I don't know exactly how to light this shot properly. I'm afraid that my writing isn't going to work because I missed some class, or I missed some... What did I miss? Did I miss a character flaw? Did I do everything I should have, that I know how to do? When you exercise everything that you know and you feel like you've done the best that you could, criticism doesn't matter, because you're like, I did that. And when the criticism comes in and you look back and you went, hey, it's actually correct. I should have changed some things. And you realize, wait a minute, I did the best that I could. I only know what to do better now because I did that. And that is the thing that will allow you, I feel like, to get out of this fucking upset mindset. Be okay with the fact that you're going to be better than you were now. And that's a really cool idea, because that allows you to be okay with, don't try to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of good. Do the best that you can. And then once you're done with it, you have opportunity to do the next thing. That's the exciting cycle that I'm into now. I'm like, holy shit, I can finish something and move on to the next thing. I don't have to be fucking precious about Star Wars anymore. Who cares? Star Wars is dead. Who cares? Whatever they're going to do, it's funny now. Moving on to the next thing. What's our next thing? Let's keep it going. Let's keep the positive going. And this stuff that's over, we can be cynical and critical about it because it's over. And I think to people like him, it's like, it's not over. You guys are just the haters. they didn't kill it. You just heard sucker. Like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so sorry that you feel that way and you're still attached to it, but I'm not anymore. I'm over it. I have gotten over all of the fandoms I had as a child because I know that they're going to just take it out back and shoot it. So it's okay. They can destroy it. I've already mourned it.
It takes longer. People are going to lose interest if you have to set up the elements of a discussion about themes and dive into complex ideas. What they want is that dopamine hit 30 seconds in to continue watching.
Pushing identity politics and the message. They done woke it up.
A big thing with a lot of...
I disagree. I just think that it's like patterns. You know, people... one of the things that they tell you in music, like digital music education, is a rule of thumb is every 8 measures, you should have some sort of element change. And they do that specifically. They just try and give you that rule of thumb. Or like a basic rule of thumb in film writing is if you have 8 sequences, then you have a movie. And you're like, what do you mean? What, the beginning, end? It's like, no, 8 sequences. And so if you understand what a sequence is, you know, which is a series of scenes, that, you know, you can go, okay, so I've filled a requirement, a foundational aspect, a technical basis of my movie so that I have some sort of rule of thumb to. But the rule of thumb is just there in a way, and it's really hard. I wish I did more. I should do more hobbies so I have more metaphors. But like I really can just think of like when you use concrete, when you pour concrete, you can't just pour concrete. You have to build wooden framework or whatever technique you're using to block off and to define where the concrete is going to pour. And a lot of the script is going to feel that sort of concrete fluidity that hasn't solidified until it's been able to fill the space, and then you have to flatten it out and make sure that you use the tool that smooths it to the level that you're trying to get it to. So like there is a foundational conformity that has to be met. That's a multiple part process. And that's the thing that I think needs to be respected here. I think that's kind of like missing and understanding how a lot of this stuff works. They think that the process doesn't have these steps, but there really are these steps, and they're all useful as far as like like something might be a fact on how to do something until you reach the point where you can then take it away, if you get what I'm saying. You build the foundation, you write an outline, and then you can ditch the outline once you've established the first draft of the script. Then you can just reference it back and forth to see, did I hit all the things I want to? But it's about creating a frame, building into the frame, removing the frame, and then doing the next. It's like, it's all part of the process. If you've manufactured one thing, you can understand that writing and art is exactly the same thing. It's not separate. The only thing that separates art from these other factory things is that there's a taste aspect. And I think that that's really cool. But every discipline, whether it's somebody making a cup or somebody building a chair, there's going to be some aspect of it that's their taste. But to do that, you have to have the foundational knowledge for that.
Bad movie critics appears to be honesty.
To summarize, social justice stories are little more than infantile revenge fantasies where the writers value power over heroism and covet self-validation rather than truthful discussion.
You motherfuckers ain't special and you're raging hypocrites. And while that may be a little bit of my opinion, what isn't my opinion is that some of you are just flat out lying.
Ultimately,
that's true. So far, he hasn't said anything that's untrue. Or his detractors here.
What we're dealing with here is people who hate being told they're wrong and whose opinions are so underdeveloped that they can't defend them when put to the task. And you know what? Tough shit.
They constantly emphasize objective...
I don't know who that is or what the context is.
...opinions with reality. The movies aren't bad because you didn't connect with them.
Okay, see, Shad, okay, you see how Shad's face and he's got the red and the Zendaya ruin, like he's super clickbaiting it, the shit out of this. But if he was nuanced about it, he would be like, yeah, I would say, yeah, the weakest part of Dune Part 2, apart from what I think about Denis changes to the script from the original book, and a lack of some finesse when it comes to shooting, Zendaya is probably the weakest aspect. And then maybe even how the Emperor is portrayed. And then I would say, well, okay. Zendaya is the weakest part of the movie as it's written, without taking into consideration how they changed things like Feyd-Rautha or Count Fenring. Like those things, or Thufir Hawat is just dropped from the story. You know what I mean? There's like bigger issues, but Zendaya is very weak as Chani in that story. But this is, he should just say that he's clickbaiting the shit out of it.
No, they're just communicating.
Why did he cut out who wrote this? But I agree with this statement also. Zendaya, they really made Zendaya look unattractive. Not she's unattractive. They made her unattractive. And frankly, Sean Yun looks like shit in that movie too. So both Chanis look ugly to me. Sorry, but it's not the actress's fault necessarily. We can split hairs over what beauty looks like on this, but they didn't do a good job of making her look like a pretty woman. Not at all. They made her look like a fucking androgynous person, which I guess is the point of all of them being like Vedican or whatever. But I think it's silly.
Ideas that are antithetical to your beliefs. Oh, and
and by the way, that's fine. You can, if something is against your beliefs, you're allowed to have that. Like, what do you mean? Most people's opinions are informed by their beliefs. When is that not the case?
Tangents. These guys love to go on.
But why doesn't he play what the tangent is? Why doesn't he say what Literature Devil's tangent is?
Tangents.
Holy shit! Which one is this?
Nothing to.
Because I think this is a different video. This is a Stan Lee video. The fucking other one was the Ray video, but this is Stan Lee's. This is his thing on X-Men.
Do with their core thesis. Never connects to their ideas.
It does connect to his idea. What do you mean? Let me see here. Fuck. What? Not. Whoops. Instead of Stan Lee, I typed in Sam Hyde for some reason. The truth is out about Stan Lee's woke X-Men and the civil rights movement. How does all of this stuff not fit? It's what he's talking about. He's like, they made X-Men to be a metaphor for LGBTQ or whatever, or racism. They make it fit whatever fucking shit is popular at the time. That's a fact. Why don't, it's always been like that. They keep doing that. Stan Lee didn't do that. They keep doing that. He just made it about mutants and shit. That didn't come until later. That's established by Eric July and Literature Devil, so it's not a tangent.
Ultimately, don't even make sense on their own when you circle back and go, okay, what did you actually say?
Okay, but what is the point of saying this? What is he trying to say? So what if it's sped up? I'm spinning you up.
And how does that connect with your core ideas?
Well, it's a really long video of him explaining himself, but it doesn't connect. But he doesn't say how.
The reason for this is that they ramble a lot, and they say...
Okay, but show me an example.
Tons of buzzwords. They'll make you think that somehow what they said is more sophisticated than it actually was. And they never speak...
But how?
Plainly. Because if they spoke plainly about their ideas, you would realize how superficial their ideas are.
But how?
The faux intellectualism.
But how?
In fact, if they ramble on enough, you might even forget what the thesis of their argument was.
But how?
So that way, they can just shift the goalposts a little.
Okay, but how?
If they throw enough at you with new information every second, you might even think they have a point.
But how?
Until you pause the video and think about what they actually said and realize, oh, it's all nonsense, actually.
But how?
Another common tactic is the idea of a central boogeyman. They always harp on one particular person, usually a woman, and then criticize them.
But how?
Kathleen Kennedy, Brie Larson, Anita Sarkeesian. These women become the people stealing away your media.
These SJWs just want
But how?
for something and excuses for continuing to ruin characters in books that they don't even read.
A face.
That's right, Eric July. Thank you for telling me how.
To the blame. And if they take quotes out of context, even better.
He even admits that any sort of portrayal in terms of Magneto being Malcolm and Professor X being like MLK was something that was done unconsciously. He literally says that himself.
Okay, see, Eric July is like, he shows a little clip of Eric July out of context, and even in the clip, Eric July is giving context to his opinion. Fucking amazing.
Reason being is that it's easier to get mad at an individual, to say this one person is responsible for all the problems you see.
But, like, okay, people talking about Kathleen Kennedy, right? She is the one person that's in charge of Star Wars. Is she not the president of Lucasfilm? Does that not mean anything? And then, like, Brie Larson, it's like, Brie Larson they were trying to make her the Superman They were trying to make her and her little group of women or whatever the next phase of Marvel, and people just weren't interested because they didn't do the work. Like, again, my thing is, if you have a bunch of nerds that are upset at your product, that's your fault. You did that. You fucked up. They were fine. You had them. You had a captive audience. If you had a captive audience, you had a monopoly on the entire industry and a captive audience, and you fucked it up, and you're blaming them. And then Anthony here is going to say, oh, they're not better than the movies, but they were happy before. And these women came in, and then the product changes. So all the circumstantial evidence, like, do we have to open up a court of public opinion here to try the case of, did Brie Larson say a bunch of shit in public to make people mad at her? Did they do a bad job of creating a character that people would grow to like? Did they do a disservice to an easy market that they could have made $1 billion? And they apparently did make a lot of money off of. So I don't understand. Like, how are people so butthurt if they're so successful? Why are they butthurt? That's my confusion. Like, what's the problem? If the sequel trilogy was so successful and hit all the marks, and all the chuds are the wrong people, then why does it matter what they say? You're on top. All they can do is cope. So why are you butthurt about it? That's confusing. Some part of that equation doesn't make sense to me.
Rather than tackle abstract ideas like a philosophy. Also, whenever the video essayist loses track of their point, they can just point to a picture of their target and say, that's the person who's at fault.
So I feel like a lot of people have a conspiracy that this video is basically an attempt at trying to do the exact thing that he's talking about. If that's intended, he's doing a good job of that. The problem is, it would work better if he was honest. Like, if his thing was, I'm trying to make a video that is making fun of these critics, he would have to use the same techniques. He can't half-ass the techniques to make a joke about it. And then if he's legitimately making these points in the way that he's making them, then he's doing it really improperly, because he's doing a disservice to his own points. And I think that's sad. I think that's, you could do a much better job. But I think that he's so indoctrinated by YouTube brain. He's so stuck on critics, like that, like it encompasses the whole world. Like, I got to be honest, people that work in the industry don't give a fuck about your opinion, because to them it's their business and they want money and they need their career to be working and they're desperate. So they're not going to pay attention to fucking Lily Orchard's Steven Universe video.
Years ago, I made a big video on Steven Universe and haven't stopped having a migraine since.
They raise the anger levels again, and you're blinded to any faults or holes in their argument. The cycle continues again. And that's why you get angry reviews for every trailer, press release, and eventually release, whenever anything science fiction or fantasy comes out. The reviewer wants to hit that knee-jerk reaction as fast as possible, even if they have to eat their own words later. Consider The Critical Drinker, who was so fast to capitalize on the release of Prey, they didn't even realize people were kind of hyped for this movie.
Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger.
Oh, this was an interesting one, actually. I'm going to let this play. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee really quick. But the reason is because it's a funny, like, the idea that Critical Drinker is like a trend follower is actually probably Anthony's best criticism, because I actually do think Drinker does play this safe game of like, oh, do people like it? Well, I better change my opinion.
Drinker and his pumped up buddies, armed with state-of-the-art weaponry, got wiped out almost to the last man by just one of these things. Then what kind of a chance has a 100-pound girl with a bow and arrow got against it?
And then the movie was pretty good. The moment he saw this, all the old videos he made about Prey were changed. Titles, thumbnails altered to appear more neutral.
Also, I'd like to point out that no hunter-gatherer society of that time period would have tolerated this kind of bullshit from one of their own. Those ideas would have been literally beaten out of her. This is 21st century Hollywood's idea of what nomadic hunter tribes acted like. So strong female character takes her suspiciously domesticated pet dog.
And you know what? Good. Cool. At least that's better than a ton of grifters.
Okay, I'm back. I might have
don't
missed something.
hide their shameless
Let me just give me 1 second here.
And you know what? Good. Cool. At least that's better than a ton of grifters who don't hide their shameless grifting on every news.
Oh, no, please. Please. What do people think the internet is? Is this the place where all the good stuff happens, or is this the grift central in general? Like, what isn't a grift on the internet? I remember I asked Kiwi Farms, like when I had an account there, I was like, yo, what is internet grifting? And then basically the response I got was basically every form of internet content is grifting, because people are asking you for what? For money for this stuff? Like, and I guess that I'm just such an old man now that I've been around the internet for so long that I like that it's a. I liked the internet as a place where you would find things that wouldn't otherwise get out. And the idea of making money off of that is really cool. However, the reason why it's a grift is because you only make a certain amount of money and the content is a certain way, and that locks you into the audience wanting something from you. So you can't, like, what are you going to do? Like, what's the most successful YouTube style career I can think of? The Paul brothers. So your future is fucking what? Trying to get into WWE or fight Mike Tyson at 60? Or like Mr. Beast or something like that, where you're like, I got to make another video where I go to Africa and treat the water there. Like, that's what I do for a living. If that's what you want to do, then it's not really a grift, is it? It's like your passion. Like, if you are on YouTube and you love what you do, it's just not a grift. I don't care what anybody says. On the other hand, if you're watching this shit and you're like, holy shit, I'm not paying for that, it absolutely seems like it's a grift. Because it's like, why give people money? You know what I mean? There's a very weird combination of things. So whenever people talk about the grifting aspect, I'm like, I kind of roll my eyes. I would suggest that, you know, when people say that like woke has no meaning anymore, I would say I disagree. People have a very much a better understanding of what woke means than what grift means. Because grift now just seems to be whatever it is that you're selling. If you're selling your opinion, it's a grift. Like, well, then everybody that's selling their opinion is a grifter. That means people on CNN are grifters. That means the people that are doing fucking everything are grifters, unless there's some sort of substantive material value that you place on it. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, if you feel like somebody is disingenuously selling you something, they're a scam artist. Don't be a pussy and hide behind the idea that it's legal. If they're doing something that's so immoral, call it a scam. If it's a grifter, then I'm just assuming that it's somebody that has you know what a grifter is to me these days? Somebody with that's playing guitar outside on the sidewalk and has the fucking little change cup. That's what most YouTube is for me, or most like live streaming stuff. It's like a bunch of buskers. That's what I would actually call them. They're buskers. They're street performers. It's just the street is on the internet.
You know, at least he had the self-awareness to go, okay, this is an unpopular take. Let me change it slightly. Most don't. Most are shameless in their approach. Most are.
See, like, he's like saying that he's saying that if I paid more attention, I would catch more of this, basically. It's really I'm trying to think of the word for it, but it's like when the military is taking an analysis and they think that there's 50,000 units and phantom units and shit on the map, but really there's only like a couple of them. It's like there's 2 battalions. We thought there were 10 divisions. That's what this guy's doing. He's trying to inflate the amount of things that you see on the map. Like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by grifters. It's like, no, actually one time he just changed the title of his video because he thought that popular opinion might actually think that it's a hotter take than it is. Like, yeah, it's weaselly. But at the same time, he's reaching for that weaselly.
Very superficial in their approach. When reports came out that X-Men 97 was Disney's 3rd most watched original program to debut on Disney+, grifters were fast to call X-Men 97 a flop.
Okay, this is something that's really interesting to me because we're at a stage in the business where what is a flop? What's a hit? How does that affect the bottom line? Here's the problem. Most people, they buy a subscription for something, and I guarantee you that most people that watch their media through streaming services just go, I'm going to have this streaming service and I'm just going to leave it on. And it doesn't matter what's on. They just stay subscribed for 12 months in a year. Right? So then the companies are looking at this metric and are saying, wow, a lot of people watch this. So I'm going to do I'm going to pay for another season of it. And you go, well, how much money did it earn us? And you don't know. Because did it go up and down? Did somebody buy a new Netflix subscription to watch X-Men 97? Or did they leave it because there wasn't anything there? Like, what is the metric? They look at watch hours and they try to extrapolate dollars, but the dollars don't change. Whereas opposed to if you look at the box office, you go, people paid to see this movie. It was 1 ticket per time watched. X amount of times, so we know exactly what sold and what didn't. You understand what I'm saying? if we're judging a hit by how many people tuned in, we don't have a monetary value associated with it. So it's no wonder to me why people are like, oh, a bunch of people watched this Velma show. Let's fucking buy another season of it. And people hate it. Because where's the money coming from? All we're doing is sinking money into subscription services. The amount of productions we do every year is based on the budget. And we're just hoping that we produce enough content that people will stick with their subscription and more subscriptions will come. This is a failure of a format. So all these videos like, oh, this flopped. It's like, no, dude, the industry is dying because of the format. We're fucked. If people aren't going to the movie theater, you're not making movie money. If people aren't paying for advertising on television, we're not making advertising money. If the subscription fee for the cable service isn't paying for all of the production and providing a surplus, we're not making money. So that's why Netflix is billions of dollars in debt. It's fucked. So all of this is fucking missing the forest for the trees as far as I'm concerned.
Which, yeah, flops don't get greenlit for a third season before the end of season 1, and don't get reported in Variety for having 3.5 million viewers in the final episode, rising in rank with each subsequent episode.
Oh, I mean, these people do hate you. If you look at Bo DeMeo, the guy who's the showrunner for the show, he is a person who just really, really wants to tear down this society, put his global homo agenda into everything, and then you better eat it up.
Holy shit! Look at this. Look at this. Look at the format of this. No wonder Harmful Opinions hated this. This is crazy. He's got text up in the left corner, and then the video is playing, but then he shows what video is playing over the top of it, so I can't see what he's referencing. I'm so confused. I mean, yeah, obviously, if somebody is like, I want the LGBT bullshit to go away. I haven't even watched this show. The animation's too ugly. I'm not gonna fucking watch this shit.
Tumor, you're a bigot.
I'm grown up. I'm not a little kid anymore. It's not 97. I'm not 6 years old anymore.
The other common tactic from grifters: the past is perfect.
There is a big difference.
No, that's so retarded, dude.
Between older Stan Lee Marvel.
Dude, the problem is that these things are old, and you're adapting them, and then you watch them, and then you want to keep making money off of them, and people have already gotten their fill. It's like, we already ate it. We already ate the meal. You can't reheat the fucking leftovers and think that it's still good. It's fucking over. We did it.
And new corporate-approved Marvel sanitized for a modern audience.
Peach has been an established character where she has been a delicate princess for a very long time.
There's 60-plus years of comics proving this. Stop ruining characters by playing politics.
Yeah, there's like so many. There's like 1,000+ amazing Spider-Mans.
But the right-wing grifters, easy pickings. Simple. Basic. I want to show you that I'm not just letting my political bias show.
I mean, not just, but you are. I mean, but I know that, but it's okay. And so on. But it's not just, but it is influenced by it, mostly.
So let's start talking about Anita Sarkeesian in Lily Orchard.
You know what I do like, though? Old shit.
By the way, guys, I got about like 10 minutes left. I know we're not done with this, so I probably will come back in about an hour or two, but I got to do something in a little bit, so... Here we go.
Anita Sarkeesian was for years the boogeyman of the internet, releasing fairly mediocre video essays analyzing video games from a feminist perspective. And while her videos do have faults, I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily label them all as bad faith media criticisms. Poorly crafted, yes, but from the perspective of someone with minimal experience playing games, it's not necessarily bad faith. A lot of her errors...
I mean, it's not necessarily... Let me impose something for a second here. Bad faith is not the right term for what this is. It's not good faith. It's not bad faith. What it is it's a malicious intrusion on a status quo. And a lot of people like the status quo. And so when this person comes in with the design to change what is the status quo, people have a hostile reaction to it. And that's irascible. So it's foreign influence as far as games are concerned. Anita was not a gamer, and we know this. She kind of like latched onto video games because they were popular. What she was an activist with a degree in what she was doing, and also a multi-level marketing person. So she was trying to figure out, she is the definition of a grifter. Like, it's so blatant. It's I guess not a grift, but it's like a... She was trying to profit as a missionary of her religion. That's how I would put it. Feminism was her agenda, and she wanted to impose feminism on the status quo in the medium, which was open, which was gatekept by people that like the culture to be creative. And so it's hostile. It's like when the corporate raiders were buying companies by doing stock buyouts and stuff, was that bad faith? No, it was a hostile takeover.
Come from someone who just isn't experienced with the medium, doesn't know the experience of female gamers, etc. But they are some bad faith criticisms within Anita Sarkeesian's greater lens that I feel a lot of people, especially on the left, refuse to engage with, primarily because she was a target of so much harassment. But enough time's passed, we can actually look at some of her bad faith arguments and address them as bad faith. Take two things.
I think that people that consider there to be harassment or something that goes on while this stuff is happening, I think that those people, those are the people that would justify suspending elections during a war because, oh, the war is going on. You know what I mean? Like, we got to drop certain pretenses and principles because somebody's being hurt. I think that's the mentality behind it.
Into account her restrictive lens of feminism and her tendency to manipulate the game mechanics to prove a point. The latter point is easy to prove first, so we'll start there.
Once a person is reduced to the status of objecthood, violence against that object becomes intrinsically permitted.
In Hitman, she constantly...
Okay, but I don't think people consider... The problem with the feminist frequency shit is it's like there's this idea that women are objects, and I'm like, that has to be... There's only one type of person that considers women to be objects. That has to be a person that emphatically and exclusively and intrinsically, extrinsically, exoterically, orthodox-wise has a axiomatic blah 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 understanding that women are not people to them. That's like, that is the she created like a guy where she had a person in mind, or whatever, Josh, whatever the guy that's behind her writing. They had like an archetype of a guy, like a pimp, like a guy that abuses women. And then the reason why everybody was pissed is that they were trying to create some sort of pseudo-intellectual, faux academic argument as to how that's man and manness. Men and man are an abusive, women objectifying thing that are like, and so they impose all that on everything. And most people don't exist like that. And those are the people that got upset about it. The people that treat women like that don't give a fuck. And that was the irony. It's like misogynists are going to be like, that bitch is stupid, and move on with their day. The only people that are upset about this are people that are like, hey, wait a minute, you just slandered an entire community, an entire group of people. What the fuck is wrong with you? And that keeps happening. Like, you keep getting harassed because you keep insulting this group of people, and like, what do you expect to happen? And I'm not defending the reaction, but I am accusing people of playing victim. I mean, how many times have we heard this? This really feels like a throwback. Like, you threw a stone at somebody, and then they threw a stone back at you, and you got upset about it. Okay, why'd you do that?
The games encourage players to commit acts of violence in areas where you can voyeur on models.
Players are then invited to explore.
This was so fucking stupid because it's like who gives a shit, you know?
And exploit.
It's a video game. That was the only argument we needed. Who gives a shit? It's a video game. And it's like, there's some things that I do give a shit should not be in a video game. Like, I don't think you should be able to like child abuse shouldn't be available in a video game. But at the same time, when you can't shoot a kid in a video game, it takes you out of the idea. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's ultimate immersion, which is like a gamer mentality. Like, oh, I want the game to be as real, or I want it to have as many subroutines or reactions as possible, which is like a scientist that it has no boundaries. And then there's the idea that, wow, that's pretty distasteful. I don't like that, you know? But that's the reason why player choice is great in video games. Because it's like, you get to impose your will however you want. That's really a judgment on your character, not on the game. So if you want to beat up women in GTA or whatever, like, you can do that. And then she was slandering it, saying the game designs you to do that. And it's like, no, the game allows you to do things. And it's like, that's the point. Your moral choices are your own. But Anita was like, and this is the problem with all these people, it's like they're trying to say we shouldn't allow certain things to enforce certain behavior. And that's doing a real discredit to people who are like, I'm going to be the one to choose what I'm allowed to do because I have morals. My morals will not permit me to do the things that you're afraid of in the first place. So stop accusing me of being a bad person just because I, picked up the hooker in GTA 3 and then shot her afterwards and got my money back. Like, that's not a reflection on my morality. It's a reflection on me having entertainment with a video game. If I was playing a moral run, it might be different. I've actually played GTA games where I was like, I want to try and kill as few people as possible. Like, but that's role playing, and it's the ability to do whatever you want that makes it a game, or a video game or whatever. You know what I mean? That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes those games live on forever, is that you have interactions that create different outcomes.
Those situations during their playthrough.
But doing this is actually counter to the game's mechanics. The game punishes you for taking...
This is the thing, though. Even if it wasn't, I don't give a fuck.
Too much of a scene.
The player cannot help but treat these female bodies as things.
Like, he's like, you get what I'm saying? Like, his criticism is valid here, even in that, like, whatever AstroTurf, the fact that I'm trying to be unbiased. It doesn't fucking matter, because if the game made you kill somebody and actually did want you to do it, it wouldn't matter. It's a video game.
To be acted upon, because they were designed, constructed, and placed in the environment for that singular purpose.
So wanton violence and wasting your time is not to your benefit.
Players are meant to derive a perverse pleasure from desecrating the bodies of unsuspecting virtual female characters.
You can do it, but you can do a lot of things in video games. You can have Mario try to give Koopas little forehead kisses in every Mario game, but that doesn't mean it'll end well for you. The problem is, though, that Anita conflates being able to do a thing in a game with the game encouraging you to do said thing.
Once a person is reduced to the status of objecthood, violence against that object becomes intrinsically permitted.
I mean, computer code, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. But yeah, no, I don't think people, like, what she's saying, like, oh, if you treat a person like an object, then violence against the object is permitted. Like, if you are willing to treat a human like an object, then you're already willing to treat a human like with violence. You know what I mean? She's just trying to put some sort of moral sentiment on a pretext of violence. Like, if you're willing to commit violence against anything, that means that you're willing to commit violence against anything. You know what I'm saying? It's a will to commit violence.
Common theme in her video essays, but I find that less disturbing than how her specific brand of feminism impacts her criticisms. You see, what a lot of people don't realize is that feminism isn't a singular philosophy, especially if you've listened to right-wing grifters all your life. Feminism is actually an umbrella term that applies to multiple different subsets of philosophy.
Oh, this is all, yeah, it's exactly space junk. It's like, didn't this happen 10 years? Didn't we go over this 10 years ago almost? We've already done this.
Many people know about fourth wave, third wave feminism. These occur because over time, people's perspectives on gender rights issues and etc. have shifted as new information becomes available and new discussions arise.
Okay, but what if all of it is deleterious to the idea of making video games fun?
It's responding to an ever-changing, progressive world. Gender identity has become a huge part of discussion, and this goes beyond simply just
it's become huge.
The gender you're assigned at birth.
It's become a problem. It's a huge problem. We have a tremendous amount of feminism.
Gender expression is a huge point as well, with several feminists in disagreement on whether women need to embrace or reject traditional feminine presentation, or if it's the individual's choice, that the person can choose how to express their own gender however they see fit. In case it's not obvious, I believe in that last point, that people should be able to express their gender however they see fit. And so a lot of Anita Sarkeesian's arguments, which are rooted in this discussion of conforming or rejecting traditional femininity, I find very troubling. Anita, in a lot of her videos, subscribes to a very particular form of feminism, one where pacifism, beauty, and intelligence.
See, like, I have nothing to say about this because this is we've done this so many times, just fucking 10 years ago.
Are key distinguishing features. But she also regards anything assigned with traditional female presentation, like dresses or fluffy bows, to be negative, to be stereotypical.
So she's a sex-negative person, and I don't like that.
To be cliche.
Thankfully, the game doesn't resort to clear gendered signifiers like a pink outfit or a pretty bow in her hair, nor does it present her gender as some kind of surprise twist like we see in the original Metroid. In both visual design and writing, Sword and Sorcery is subtle about asserting the Scythian's gender.
As a result, she creates a particular box for which things can be valid in her eyes as female rep, or invalid if it falls outside that box.
Unlike the deaths of so many female characters in games which serve the purpose of fueling the development of male
I'm stuck on a Groundhog Day. I feel like it's 2014 again.
characters, the Scythian's death is tragic because her life had intrinsic value.
Oh my god.
This means a ton of beloved characters.
Wow, this anime girl's so pretty. No intrinsic value?
Are arbitrarily criticized for falling outside her particular parameters, especially Nintendo characters like Princess Peach, Princess Zelda, and even Samus Aran.
Consequently, the trope robs women in peril from the opportunity of being the architects of their own escape, and therefore prevents them from becoming archetypal heroes themselves. Disguised as Sheik, she is a helpful and active participant in the adventure, transforms back into her more stereotypically feminine form of Princess Zelda. She's captured within 3 minutes. Her rescue then becomes central to the end of Link's quest. Once in a while, she might be given the opportunity to have a slightly more active role in facilitating the hero's quest, typically by opening doors, giving hints, power-ups, and other helpful items.
Which is frankly the same thing a lot of right-wing grifters do with their arguments, that they have a very specific box as to what they deem acceptable, and if it falls outside that box, it is seen as bad.
Oh, people that are ideologically motivated have ideological motivations. That's so... Damn, dude, I didn't know that. What the fuck?
The only difference is Anita is doing this from a leftist perspective, where the right-wing grifter is doing it from a right-wing perspective.
That's so smart. How did you know that?
But it's the same problem. It's the same faulty argument. Political lenses. And the end result is the same. Rather than engage with the media in question, both apply a restrictive limitation to what is and isn't good, which ignores a lot of statements made by audience members of a certain particular type of media. They may find certain characters empowering, like Bayonetta, who were criticized by Anita Sarkeesian when they first came around. Now they're regarded as a beloved icon of video games, but Anita Sarkeesian argued that Bayonetta was sexist. This ignored the opinion of a lot of women who found her empowering, and a lot of lesbians who wanted to, you know, who felt very attracted to Bayonetta.
Okay.
You blame them?
Okay. What the fuck is this video about?
Sexuals, for that matter. The point is, Anita's particular lens of feminism was deemed as the authentic statement. Outside of that?
No, this dude is like fucking like power dynamics. How do I determine what other people are gonna think? It's a little sneaky of him to like try and he's doing the Mott and Bailey of my objectivity in the opposite direction.
Nothing counted. Ignoring the voices of women to prop up your own feminism. Interesting take. The difference here is that, unlike a lot of grifters, Anita doesn't waste her time. She gets right to the point, which means her points hit harder because you're not falling asleep while watching her videos.
I am falling asleep while watching your video, though.
This also means right-wing grifters can easily understand her points. Anita is clear, concise, and that makes her perfect for rebuttals because she's always saying something.
I mean, like, dude, this is dumb, but I've heard, again, just ignore everything he's saying here. This is all just stupid. And I know that's like such a silly thing to say, but it's like you've heard this before. You've heard all of these excuses before that make no sense. Oh, she's so interesting. There's always new content. Like, which sounded exactly like what he was complaining about previously, about how, oh, there's always new stuff. You're always paying attention because there's always something. And then earlier he was saying they're always putting in new stuff so that you lose track of what you're paying attention to. It's fucking, he's contradicting himself back all over the place.
Every few seconds, there's a new piece of content to create. This is opposed to your average right-wing grift video where you can literally cut out 70% of their words and lose nothing pertaining to the central argument. In fact, a lot of the times, you can cut out 70% of the video and all you're doing is cutting them out, repeating the same statement. This is not the case, however, for Lily Orchard, who has never heard of a central thesis she can stick to, and always goes off on long, rambling video essays, where she completely misrepresents the target of her criticism and delivers several personalized insults for people she deems lesser than her.
Becky's not very smart, tried to do one thing, smashed her face into a wall, whatever, I get it. Because nobody who watches Utena as an adult sees a revolutionary step forward in gay rap and anime. What they see is a fucking mess. There's no way around it. This makes him come off like a fucking asshole.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion.
A lot of you are probably wanting me to go into the personal accusations against Lily, but if we looked into the accusations made about half the grifters we've discussed so far, we'd be here all day. Now, Lily Orchard is unique. She writes her scripts in stream of consciousness, which is just when you write your thoughts as they come to you. It's a rant, essentially, where she just says whatever comes to her mind, and there's no editing involved. There's no secondary thought. There's no point where she goes, okay, hang on, stop, let me edit that out so it makes more sense, or structure this so I'm improving my thesis, or tying back to my core ideas. It's just stream of consciousness. And she's admitted this. This is not like a fake. I'm not lying about her. That's what she says. She sustains herself on pure frustration with media, adhering that all media must conform to her very specific, very rigid perspectives. And
Holy shit, bro. Lily Orchard shit. I think I'm probably done with this, because I Lily Orchard, fuck Lily Orchard. I got nothing to say.
All nonsense. Put her in a different league of grifter, one that, in this regard, and Marvel. There's a trend among audiences to create fake first-based Marvel. No, that's a tier list. It's a tier list, and most right-wing grifters are in the shadow of Lily Orchard, and that's
retarded.
Actually, deeply upsetting. Actually,
retarded.
Why am I pointing this out? So, why does any of this matter? Who cares, right? Why do bad movie criticisms make the landscape of media criticism a worse place? Well, simply put, it allows people to stop thinking critically. A trend I notice online is that people will echo what their favorite personalities say. And if you watch, say, Lily Orchard, you'll probably agree that Steven Universe is pro-fascist. If you watch Ethan Van Sciver, you might argue that Marvel Comics is secretly controlled by a lesbian Illuminati.
Okay, but like that's the thing. It's like if they make a good enough argument, then people will admit it. Yeah. It's called persuasion. Read Dilbert or whatever.
The problem is this. By doing that, you're actually not engaging with the media anymore. You're just echoing what someone else told you to say. And you're not coming up with your own answers. And if those answers you're echoing are based off faulty logic, that means you're not even engaging with anything anymore beyond their perspective. You're helping create an alternate reality where art and a fake version of said art exist in tandem. And if you don't believe it, consider the Mandela effect. There's a trend among audiences to create fake quotes from movies without intending it. For example, Darth Vader never says, "Luke, I am your father."
No, this is just people misremembering shit.
Says, "No, I am your father." A small detail.
Yeah, people just misremember it. It's not the Mandela effect. They just misremember it. The one that's funnier Mandela effect is like everybody remembers Fruit of the Loom having a specific trademark or whatever, and then they're like, no, that never happened. Or the Berenstain Bears thing. That shit is like people misremembering stuff, but on such a mass scale, there's like group psychosis about it.
Right? What about that scene in 2001, The Space Odyssey, where they say, "My God, it's full of stars"? Everyone quotes this scene, but it never happens in the film.
Okay, but this wasn't influenced by YouTubers or whatever.
This is what they call the Mandela effect. It's when you remember something happening that didn't actually happen. Bad movie criticism and bad media criticism is speeding up the Mandela effect to an absurd level.
No, it's not. That's bullshit.
If you see a bad movie critic misinterpret something online enough times, and those bad critics echo each other, knowing that it's successful in the algorithm, you'll think art did something that didn't actually happen.
That's such bullshit, dude. He's like, oh, if YouTubers are gaslighting you that something happened that didn't actually happen, then we're fucked. It's like, no, dude. Imagine thinking that people get it right or wrong when everybody gets a little bit wrong. At least you're going to get some of it wrong. It's just inherent. People aren't perfect.
You believe the lie and never return to the media in question to double check. And then you...
What does that mean? What? No, that's presumptive. You're just presuming people act a certain way. That's not how it works.
Go those wrong beliefs, and more people will believe you. And ultimately, this distances everyone from the art that you suppose.
That's really reductive. Okay, imagine people are so stupid that they don't look up a fact to see if it's true or not. There's no helping them. What am I going to do? Who's the bigger fool? The fool or the fool who follows him?
They love. And that kind of fucking sucks, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, from a certain point of view.
This is made all the worse because often bad movie criticism paints a target on real people.
But what about gay movie? What about inner city black movie criticism? You ever think about that? What about Marxist, anarcho-capitalist, communist movie shitticism?
Spreading lies about a movie is one thing. Slandering a person, a real person, and blaming them for perceived faults that don't actually exist or are highly exaggerated, that's far worse. I ultimately don't care.
I gotta go right now. I'm gonna be late, so I just want to get through.
If you like or dislike The Last Jedi, I won't lose sleep over it. But you know who will lose sleep over your harassment campaigns? The actors involved.
Oh, fuck you, bro. How many times have we heard this? Nobody condones the harassment of actors. It's not their fault. They just advertise this shit so that they can have a shield. Blah, 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 over and over again.
The crew who have been targeted for harassment. That's screwed up, man.
Don't blame the critics for the harassment that people get. That's bullshit. That's like, oh, I'm blaming the critics for why John Lennon got shot. Like, that. No, that doesn't work for me. That don't work for me, brother.
Especially when bad movie criticism is combined with conspiracy theory paranoia, where you believe...
Oh, well, you're making a conspiracy theory out of it.
Daisy Ridley or Kelly Marie Tran for some greater evil.
Oh, the critics are the cause for why Kelly Marie Tran got harassment. That's a conspiracy.
The film industry. And you target them, and you harass them. That's just cruel, man. The danger with bad media criticism is that eventually it bleeds into real-life conspiracy theories, which can hurt actual people.
That's such an interesting way of looking at it. Yes. Then he's like, I like H Bomber Guy though. That's so weird. Like that applies to every criticism. That applies to anybody having an opinion on anything, that their opinion might affect other people. Like being afraid of a mob, I guess, is what this guy's detail is.
It's all part of the greater pipeline that exists on the internet. The paranoia, the clicking on videos that you agree with, and getting more extreme stuff, and more extreme stuff, and more.
No, it's not a pipeline to fucking fascism or whatever, dude. You just don't like the movie and you want somebody to fucking explain it to you.
Stuff until you're no longer living in reality.
No.
Living in a divorced existence.
No, that's what happens when you a headspace that is toxic for yourself.
But there is some good news, though. There's a cure for all this. You want to hear the cure? You want to hear the cure? I'll tell you now the cure.
It's ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Oh, wait, that's a different discussion.
Watch the movies you're complaining about.
Oh, really? That's stupid.
And come up with your own idea.
That's a really pathetic way to end the movie. I mean, this video.
Sounds easy, right? Then start thinking for yourself for once.
Start thinking for yourself, bitch. Start thinking for yourself, loser. You don't even know how. Well, that was stupid, but it was very enjoyable. And I'm glad we got to the end of it. We could just skip Lily Orchard or whatever. But I really got to head out. I really appreciate you guys coming in and suffering through this. Suffer through it with me. Rakita said I could just shit talk the movie. All right. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Since I'm not going to follow up later, I'm going to get back to work on the next thing I'm working on. I'm working on something. I don't really want to give it away because it's fun to do it. But yeah, I got something that has been in the pipeline for a long time that will be an exploration. It doesn't have to be a criticism or whatever, but it should be entertaining. And I'm going to record the voice part today, and then I'll hopefully have that edited out within like a week or so. hopefully sooner, depending on how dedicated I can get into the visuals. But it's probably going to be difficult because it requires a lot of editing. So I got to go right now, but everybody take it easy. Have a good